Good afternoon, attendees. Here are some important reminders for our webinar today.
First, make sure to follow the name format, affiliation underscore your name, example PUP underscore Juan de la Cruz. You can also watch the webinar live through our Facebook page. The link is sent to your email address and also provided in the chat box. During the webinar, help us maintain order by keeping your microphone on mute and your video off.
For your questions for the open forum, you may send it in the chat box of the Zoom meeting or in the comment section of our FB Live. Evaluation form will be given after the webinar. Certificates will be provided for those who have successfully accomplished the evaluation form. Please be reminded that the link for the certificate of participation will be emailed to your email address used during the evaluation. Make sure that you have entered the correct email address. Also, please ensure that you have entered your name correctly as we will use it in the certificates. Take note that we will not issue a new one to those misspelled names. Again, please stand by. The webinar will begin shortly. Thank you.
Good afternoon, engineers and future engineers. We are delighted to have you all today in our webinar on Contract and Procurement Management. But before we begin with our program, let us all first feel the presence of the Lord, to be followed by singing of the national anthem, to be led by Bagong Himig Serenata.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Bayang magiging beses na sinamanan, alam ng puso, sa litin mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyot ka ng magiting, sa manlulupi, di ka pasisigin. Sa dagat at kulot, sa simoy at sa langit mo baba, may nilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isat ng pagtawag mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig, ang bituin ng araw niya kailan pa may magdidinig. Lupa ng araw ng buwan at aking pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang ligaya na pag may makakit, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Again, good afternoon, everyone. I am Rowan Marie B. Paet, third-year Railway Engineering student, one of your moderator for today's webinar. And welcome to the Contracts and Procurement webinar with the theme, Make the Deal, Traversing the World of Engineering, Procurement, and Contracts. Engineering and law may be worlds apart, but laws affect engineering in some ways. Engineers deal with highly technical concepts, designs and products, and laws affecting an engineer's work can be as complex as the work itself. Engineers may be disinclined to devote their time to study the law, but there are some laws that engineers should be familiar with to prevent problems during their field careers.
Indeed, Rowan, engineering alone is already complicated. How much more if law will be added into it? I think that would be more sophisticated. However, this webinar aims to help us understand these things with the help of our invited guest speakers. But before that, let me introduce myself first. I am Mark D. Guzman, third-year Railway Engineering student, and I am ready to make a deal today.
To formally start our webinar, we would like to call Engineer Kenneth Brian Tana, the chairperson of the Civil Engineering Department, to deliver his opening remarks. Sir?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I would like to acknowledge each one of you who took time to attend this event. All participants, students, professors, professionals, and guest speakers, Attorney Salaw and Dr. Wanson, to the organizer, Ma'am Arlette and Joseph Vianes, and to the Dean of the Institute of Technology and the Chairperson of Railway, Dean Ramir Cruz, and also the Dean of the College of Engineering, Dr. Remedios Ado. Welcome. I would like to give my appreciation to the hosts and organizers who made this event possible. The Polytechnic University of the Philippines, College of Engineering, the Civil and Railway Engineering Department. I am delighted to join you in the webinar today, Making a Deal, Traversing the World of Engineering, Procurement, and Contracts. In our profession as engineers, contract and procurement management is always an issue. Contract management is one of the process in construction management that helps to build good working relation between customers as service providers. It is an integral part of the construction projects. Managing contract is equally crucial to the success of every business processes due to the rapid increase of multiple contracts. One of the objectives of the contract management and procurement is to obtain the services as agreed and the contracts and gain value for the money. In this webinar, we will be learning to understand, develop, manage, and control of contract formations, negotiations, management, and people technical guidance and oversight of the procurement function to learn to lead the procurement life cycle. Now that we have ascertained about ideas about today's topic, I hope everyone of you are anticipating today's learning as much I am. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you po. Magandang hapon po.
Thank you, Sir Kenneth, for those very insightful and warm to our participants. I can feel that our participants is very excited to meet our first speaker. However, can we get a heart react from you guys so that I can verify my feeling? Wow! Since we don't want to prolong your excitement, Engineer Joseph Raniel Bianes, the laboratory head of the CERE department and faculty in charge in CE Laws, Ethics, and Contracts, will be introducing our first speaker. Engineer Bianes, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So I will now proceed with the introduction of our guest speaker. Okay. So a pleasant afternoon to everyone. So it is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you our first speaker for our webinar. So our speaker is a licensed civil engineer and earned his degree, Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila in 1983. In 1991, he obtained his diploma in construction technology from Osaki Institute of Construction Technology in Japan. Our speaker also holds 2 master's degree. One is in Master in Business Administration, Top Executive Program, which he earned in 2006 from the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila, and the other one is Master of Science in Construction Management and from the Polytechnic University of the Philippines Open University System in 2014. So he earned his PhD in Management with specialization on Construction Quality Management System from Colegio de San Juan de Letran, Calamba in 2013. He is writing dissertation to complete. The research speaker does not just excel in his academic career, but also in teaching career as well. So he has been teaching in various universities here in the country since 1987 up to the present. So to name a few, he served as full professor for the Construction Engineering and Management of Mapua University, assistant professorial lecturer part-time at the De La Salle University, special associate professorial lecturer part-time at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines Open University System, and associate professor 5 and director of graduate program in engineering at the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila. Our speaker has an immense professional construction management experience as well from 1984 since he graduated up to the 2017. To name few, he had served as Vice President / Director for Construction Management of the AC Ong Consulting Inc. from August 2016 to May 2017 and Assistant Vice President for Construction of the Filipinas Drabo Corporation from January 1995 to February 2000. For his business affiliation, so he is also a successful businessman. So he's a former president of JB Wanson Builders Inc. from 1995 to 2015 and concurrently the principal consultant for the JB Wanson Consulting Construction Management Services from March 2020 up to the present, and the president of the Justin Barbara Salon, a centric salon Inc. from August 1998 to present. So he's also a member of various national and international organizations such as ASCE or the American Society of Civil Engineers from February 2018, then GeoMate or the Geotechnique, Construction, Materials, and Environment, a member since February 2016, IEDRC or the International Economic Development and Research Center. So he's a senior member since June 2014, or the Associate of Researchers in Construction Management, member since August 2013, University of Reading, United Kingdom, and CIB or the International Council for Research and Innovation in Building and Construction. So he's an individual member since September 2018. So Rotterdam, so the Netherlands, and the Philippine Institute of Civil Engineers as a life member. So our speaker, despite his busy teaching schedule, has still managed complete high-impact journals and conference proceedings and have attended numerous seminars, trainings, and conventions to further enhance his skills and has been a research speaker in various national and international seminars, webinars, and conferences throughout his career. So without further ado, I present to you our first speaker, Dr. Joseph Berlin Wanson. So let us all give him a big round of virtual applause. So, hello sir, good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Very long, very comprehensive introduction. Okay, so thank you very much, G and Joseph. No, so thank you for inviting me here, no, sa webinar nyo. Okay, so I hope you learned something about what I'm going to discuss to you about contracts management. No, so can I share Joseph? Okay, can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes,
Joseph?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, welcome. So welcome to students and professionals also are attending this webinar. And again, thank you for inviting me to talk to you about this about contract management. Okay. Actually, I've been teaching also this in our school at PUP at MSCM, so Master of Science in Construction Management, right? Am I loud and clear? Narinig ba ako na maayos?
Yes po, yes po.
Sir.
Here po.
Ayos po.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let me start. So I know you're very eager to learn something about contracts management, no? Anyway, so again, I'm Joseph Berdinonson, so that they just call me Dr. Uchi for short. Okay, so for my topic outline, so I'll just have an overview of the contract construction. I'll concentrate on maraming klaseng contract, but I'll concentrate, of course, in construction contracts. Okay. Then I'll discuss the contractual information, technical information, the contract management itself, of course, and the contract management process and the conclusion. Okay. So to give you an overview, so ano ba yung contract? I think lagi natin naririnig to, no? May kontrata ba kayo? May kontrata ba kayo? So ano ba yung kontrata? What is a contract? So basically, it is an agreement, right? Agreement between two parties. So it is voluntary. So when you say agreement, ito yung pagkasunduan nyo, right? So maraming klaseng kontrata. There is contract, but we're going to concentrate on construction contracts. Okay. So in many respects, a project and construction contracts just like any other contract. So it is voluntary agreement between two parties, okay, entered into for mutual benefit. So dapat mutual benefit. It should be beneficial to both parties. Walang maargabyado, okay? So in which one party provides goods or services to the other party in return for a payment. So sino yung nag-provide ng goods? So one party provides goods or services. So kung nag-provide siya ng goods, that means siya ay supplier. Right? Kung services naman, then that means a contractor or consultant or any or architectural design firm or construction management services. Okay? So usually yung pinagkasunduan nila is what we call the consideration, okay, in the contract. So again, it is an agreement between two parties. So before we can manage the contract, by the way, before we can manage the contract, I'll discuss first ano ba ang nilalaman ng kontrata, no? So the contract, so again, still an overview. In contract, in terms of enforceability, it includes an offer and an acceptance. Sino yung nag-offer at sino nag-accept? Anyone? So, siyempre, kung I've been a contractor for at least 15 years, no? So, I'm the one who offer my services to a client. So, that means I'm the one who offer that if my offer is acceptable to the client, then we will have an agreement or a contract agreement. Okay. Then we will clearly set out all the terms of the agreement, so without ambiguity, and importante ron, it is signed by involved proper parties who will have the proper capacity to enter into the contract. So usually, kapag company or corporation, there is a representative. Okay. So in my case, I am the authorized managing officer of my company. So I am the one who is in charge or authorized in signing the contract. Okay. On the other, if for example, my client is Ayala Corporation, then Ayala Corporation will assign someone who will be responsible in signing the contract. Okay, and accepting it. So, sino ba ang contracting parties? So, as you can see here, usually at the middle or the red one is the client or the project owner. So, the project owner can have, if he has a project and he wants to meron siyang concept and he wants a detailed design, he will contract a commission the services of a architectural engineering designer. Okay, so in this case, between the client and designer, the designer here will make an offer to the client. So magkakaroon ng agreement between the designer and the client or the project owner. Okay. Upon completion of design, so natapos na yung design, it was successfully completed. Then before the start of the project, pwede naman siyang mag-hire naman ng construction management consultant who will assist the owner in implementing the project. So especially sa pre-construction, siya yung tumutulong para maghanap ng or mag-evaluate ng contractor. So again, there's a contract between the owner or the client and the construction management consultant. So separate contract yun, hindi yan parehas. Okay? Although merong consultant na A&E na siya, CMS pa. But again, kahit na isang kumpanya yan, hinihiwalay nila yung kontrata. Okay? Hiwalay yung contract sa design and hiwalay yung contract sa construction management as construction management consultant. Now, upon completion of the pre-qualification contractors, tinulungan ni CMS construction management consultant si owner, makahanap ng general contractor. Okay, again, meron naman tayong contract agreement between the client, project owner, and the general contractor. Okay, so si client, tatlo yung naging kontrata niya. Simula kay designer, kay CMS, yung Master Construction Management Consultant, and general contractor. By the way, hindi lahat ng project ay merong construction management consultant. Sometimes, the owner itself or the client himself has their own capability to manage the project. So minsan hindi sila nag-hire na ng construction management consultant. So directly, he will now hire he will commission the services of a general contractor. So again, magkakaroon ng kontrata or contract agreement between the client and the owner and the general contractor. Again, dito naman makita niyo meron naman tayo tinatawag na agreement between general contractor and specialty contractor. Kung makita niyo, walang agreement sa specialty contractor kay client, right? Ang agreement niya is between the general contractor. So the specialty contractor, like for example, the mechanical, the plumbing, the electrical, so those are specialty contractors. Okay? And again, kung meron mga special product or goods na kailangan si contractor, magkakaroon siya ng kontrata or simple contract with the supplier. So nakita nyo, ang daming how many contracts meron dito? Meron tayong 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Yung kabuuan nito para matapos yung project ng client. Okay? So those are the agreement in between of them. So, before we start managing the contract, sabi ko kanina, we have to know first, ano ba yung nasa loob ng kontrata? Ano ba yung nilalaman ng kontrata? Okay? So, the contract issued with the construction documents goes to the firm that will perform the work. So, this includes what? The agreement, of course, the general conditions, the special conditions, sample of bonds, and insurance requirements. So, let's discuss this individually. Okay, so the contract, one of the contractual information will be the agreement. So the first part of the agreement is the identification of the parties. So meron tayo sabi ko kanina, how many parties per contract? At least 2, dalawa. Pero minsan meron 3, pero magkasama yung dalawa doon sa isang as one party. Okay, so usually the client and for example, sabi ko kanina, the contractor. So sila yung dalawang parties na magkakaroon ng contractual agreement. Okay. Then of course we have to describe or description of the project and the work of the work. Then we have importante yung date mag-start. So nakalagay sa kontrata yan kung dapat kailan ba dapat mag-start, and meron din tayo tawag na date of substantial completion. Yun yung natawag na, for example, mga 95% completion. Nakalagay din siya. No? Then liquidated damages, I'll discuss this later. Ano ba yung liquidated damages? Nakalagay din niya sa kontrata na kapag hindi natapos ni contractor yung project in the stipulated time sa contract, meron siya tinatawag na LD or liquidated damages. Okay? And the most important din sa contract is the contract sum. Siyempre, andun yung napag-agreehan nyo na amount ng project. Okay? Then also discuss sa agreement will be the progress payments. So we'll discuss this also in detail mamaya. So ano ba yung, paano ba siya babayaran? May down payment ba? And so on. And kung paano yung progress billings niya. Then we have the interest rates, kung meron man. Usually, ang kakaroon interest rate kapag masyado mahaba yung duration ng project, wherein we have to consider the inflation and others. And then the last one is here is the retainage or the retention money. So ano ba yung retention money? I'll discuss it in detail mamaya. Ito yung binabawas sa contractor para naman at the end of the project, pag natapos yung project, may panghawak si owner na at least 10% ng amount ng kontrata para kung meron man mga defects doon sa ginawa ng contractor, meron pa siyang hawak na para to cover those defects. Okay, I'll discuss that in later yung retainage. So these are basically basic na contractual information or what we call the agreement. Then we have the general conditions. The purpose of the general condition is to establish the legal responsibilities. Ito yung tawag na obligations. Ano yung obligation ni owner, ano yung obligation ni the contractor. Okay? Sino yung mga authorized? Sino yung authorized authority? Ano yung rights of all the parties involved in the project? So, andyan sa general conditions, di-discuss yung mga legal responsibilities, obligations, kung kanino ba naka-assign yung ganito. So that's the part of the general conditions. Usually, ang part na ito ay medyo may template. Parang ano siya, parang kaya nga general condition siya. Usually general siya sa halos lahat ng kontrata. Okay? Meron pa question?
Hello?
Okay. Organizer, please, yung marami dyan man naka-on na mic. Okay. Kung may questions kayo, you can ask questions. Or mamaya na. Lahat ba ng questions mamaya sa tatanungin. Okay. Aside from the general conditions, meron yung tawag na special conditions. So ano naman yung special conditions? These are sometimes called the supplementary. Okay? Supplementary contract, special provisions of the contract. So they're intended to supplement. So kung yung mga wala doon sa general conditions kanina, ilalagay doon sa special conditions. Ito yung mga additional or supplemental. Okay? Para lang mas detalyado kung ano yung, kasi merong project na, project 1, kunyari, ito yung ano niya, general conditions niya, pero sa project 2, iba rin yung special conditions niya. So nagkakaiba. Doon lang nagkakaiba sa special conditions. Kaya siya tinawag na special conditions. Okay? So these are also the additional, this also include additional older requirements. Okay? For prevailing wages and additional insurance requirements, something like that. And also part of the contractual information is are the bonds. Have you heard about bonds? Ano ba yung mga bond? So if the contractor fails to perform in accordance with the contract, a bond will protect the owner. So ito yung protection or insurance ng client. Okay? Na pag hindi niya na-perform, o for example, sa umpisa pa lang, sa bidding pa lang, nag-back out si winning bidder, meron na tawag na bid bonds. Wherein ang makukuha, mapupropit ni ni owner o ni client yung bid ban nung winning contractor kapag hindi siya tuloy dun sa project. Okay? So meron tayong performance bond to make sure na magpe-perform yung contractor according to the plans and specifications. And then yung payment bond, so every time na magbabayad yung meron tayong payment para dito kung if ever binigyan ka agad ng payment tapos bigla nawala yung contractor, merong insurance si client for the payment. Okay, para to cover the amount of payment na binigay nyo sa contractor. Na for the guarantee, ito yun sa kapalit ng pagtatapos ng project. So meron tayong 1 year na guarantee do sa project na wala siyang defects, walang leak yung mga plumbing or something like that. So para makuha mo yung retention bond mo kanina, retention money mo pala kanina, yung retainage, you need to issue a guarantee bond. Okay? So then you'll get the 10% retention. So these are the bonds are kinukuha to sa mga insurance companies. Okay? So ang contractor ang nagbabayad dito. Okay? This part of the estimate. Ay, ito pala sa isa. Okay? So also called payment bond, also called the labor material bonds. Okay, guarantee. This guarantee bond that the contractor will guarantee on quality of work. Okay, completed after a period of 1 year. Okay. Okay. So aside from the bonds, meron tayong mga tinatawag na insurances. So to be purchased by the contractor also as required by the client. Okay? Para saan ba ang insurance? This is to protect the contractor naman against risk during the construction period. So construction is a very high risk type of industry. So we really need to have securities or insurances. So what are the types of insurances? We have the workers' compensation, we have the comprehensive liability, and then contractors all risk. No? So for the workers' compensation, this insurance covers disability and medical treatment or injuries. Kung meron ng aksidente sa site, sa project, alam naman natin na delikado ang mga trabaho dito sa site. So pag may nangyaring problema sa site, from aksidente or disability, this insurance will cover the compensation of the workers. Okay. How about the comprehensive liability? So this provides naman protection from third-party claims. So it is injury to non-workers at the site. So bumisita sa site, tapos na aksidente siya or napako, something like that. In my case, na-experience ko to, napadaan ako sa, wala pa ako sa loob ng construction site. Na-traffic lang ako, pero nakatapat ako sa project na isang building, mataas na building sa Makati. Nabagsakan yung sasakyan ko ng maliit na bato coming from the construction. So pumasok ako sabi ko, nabagsakan yung coach ko ng bato coming from your sa project nyo. So sinagot naman ng company kasi alam naman nila na merong comprehensive liability na insurance. So pinalitan nila yung aking windshield na nabasag. Okay, that's part of the insurance. About the it is the most common, the contractors all risk, no? So this is essentially property insurance for the building, but it's under the control of the contractor. So ito yung kapag yung barracks, kunyari nasunog, something like that, or yung project itself hindi pa tapos pero may nangyari, okay, nasunog, or minsan nangyari sa akin, minsan time na ginagawa ko yung project, lumindol, so na-misalign yung mga nagkaroon ng yung mga hollow blocks. So I have to remove that. Okay? Usually yung mga meron din mga explosive type materials like paints, yung mga pintura, very dangerous. Okay? Lalo pag masyadong mainit. And also kapag meron tayo na nakawan tayo, especially yung mga electrical wires, yung mga fixtures na maliliit, na madaling manakaw, then it will be covered by the carry or the contractor's all risk insurance. Okay? So this is still part of the contractual information. So lahat ito nakalagay sa kontrata. So aside from the contractual information, meron din tayo tinatawag na technical information. Of course, ito yung medyo concerned tayo kasi ito yung mga ginagawa naman ng ating on our side. Usually, the contractual information is being drafted or authored by a lawyer. Okay? In case of the technical information, which is part of the contract. Okay? Kasi hindi natin naka-attach yan, pero sinasabi sa kontrata, part of the contract are the technical information. So these are what? These are the plans and specifications. Okay? So the technical information is presented into two formats, the drawings and specifications, or the plans and specifications. So these two formats are different. So meron tinatawag na graphic, which is the drawing or the plans, and then the other one is the narrative form, which is the specifications. So these two forms don't exist independently but as a unit. Sir, as a unit naman pala, bakit hindi nilang plans na lang? Bakit hindi nilang specs na lang? So hindi naman maintindihan kung narrative form lang yung pagbabasihan natin sa project, bakit hindi natin maintindihan? Diba? Pwede describe the column is 12 by 12, something like that. So mas mahirap. So kaya tayo kinatawag na graphic representation. Ba't hindi na puro graphic na lang? Kasi naman, hindi na pwede natin ilagay lahat ng yung specs sa loob ng plano. So for example, ang concrete mo ay sinabi mo 5,000 PSI. So nakalagay yun lahat sa specifications. Ang bakal mo, something rebars mo ay ang dapat gagamitin mo ay 36 KSI, something like that, or 60 KSI. Nakalagay yun sa specifications. Okay, I think I have the details. Okay, let's start with technical specifications. So again, this is still part of the contract. Okay, so sabihin nyo ano to, dito nakalagay sa kontrata itself, sa contract, but it is attached and it is part of the contract as an annex or appendix or as attachment. Okay, ito yung makapal na specifications. Okay, so the technical specs are written with description of the quality of the project. So there are cases in government specification hindi allowed yung branding. Okay, so you should, for example, paint, it should be Davis or something, it should be Boyce. Hindi pwede yun sa government kasi it will be biased, no? So in-specify lang nila kung ano type of quality na gagamitin for that specific material. Okay, so there are three types of specifications. Okay, we have the design specs, the performance specs, and the proprietary specs. Okay. What are the design specs? Ito yung usually ginagawa ng architects and engineers like us. Okay? So these are known as descriptive specifications. They are detailed description of materials, the workmanship, how you're going to install it, how you're going to erect it, erection procedures. Kumbawa, the scaffoldings, paano mo siya tatayo, anong klaseng material ng scaffoldings na lalagay, gagamitin mo. So bawal lang ngayon yung lumber or something pag three-story na ba. So we'll use the steel forms now, scaffoldings. Okay. So part also of the design specs is the contractor's obligation. So to follow the instruction laid out in the specification. So dito yung mga dapat sundin na contractor during the implementation of the project. So on the other hand, the performance specs naman, this may be expressed in terms of operational capacity, functional qualities, yung appearance niya, yung finish niya, yung color, texture, or structural tolerance. Kung may clearance ba siya, gaano kalaki lang yung allowable clearance, something like that. Kung yung finish niya, kung plaster siya, anong klaseng plaster siya, steel tooled ba siya, or wooden finish, what do you call that? Kasi dalawa yung ginagamit, steel spatula or the wood spatula. So mas maganda yung finish siyempre nung but sometimes kailangan din natin wrap, finish. So naka-describe yun sa technical specifications kung makinis ba siya or wrap finish ba siya. Okay? Okay. Okay. So once you're done with the what's inside the contract agreement, how now we can now manage the contract during the implementation. Paano natin siya ma-manage? Paano natin susundin yung kontrata? Okay, how we're going to manage the contract? I think this is what now the heart of our webinar or discussion, right? So ano ba ang contract management? So contract management is the process which will ensures all parties to a contract will fully meet their obligations. Okay? So di ba sabi natin kanina, meron tayo owner, merong obligation si owner, may obligation din si contractor. Okay? Or the designer or the construction management consultant. So in order to satisfy the operational objectives of the contract and the strategic business goals of the customer. Wait, oops, so sorry. I think sandali i-charge ko lang. Technical problem. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay. So, yung both parties, kailangan nilang ma-meet yung obligation sa bawat isa, sa isa't isa. Okay? So, bakit ganoon? Di ba, ang may obligation lang ba si contractor? No. Because siya magbibigay ng servisyo? No. Meron ding obligation of course si owner. Ano ba yung number one obligation ni owner? To the client. The number one obligation of the owner, the client is to pay the contractor on time. Okay? Okay, say natin. So why contract management? Bakit ba meron tayong contract management? So effective contract management incorporates identifying, monitoring, and managing all risks and opportunities. So sabi natin kanina, ulit ako, sabi ko, construction management is a very high risk type of work or in the industry or business. Okay? So it is managing all risks and opportunities over the life of the project contract to achieve project objectives and value for money outcomes. Okay? So lahat naman ng contracting parties gusto nila beneficial to both of them. Kaya sabi natin kanina, the contract should be beneficial to both parties. So walang margabyado. Pag nagkaroon ng may argabyado, doon nagkakaroon ng disputes. Okay? I'll discuss that mamaya. Okay? So this is the essence of why we manage the contract, because of the risk involved, risk and opportunities. Okay? The contract also has a cycle, no? The construction management cycle. So meron tayong contract request or the procurement stage. So I think this will be discussed by another speaker. Napakahaba rin yan, no? Actually, procurement management is one term or one sem. We discussed that in one sem in the Master of Science in Construction Management. Okay? Nagdaan tayo ng request. Sino ba nag-request? The client will request for a so ang gagawa niyan is yung procurement management. Okay? Then authoring or what we call the drafting of the contract. Okay? And usually it is usually tayong gumagawa, may template naman siya, then it will be checked by a legal department or a lawyer. Kung wala tayong legal department, you just have to retain a lawyer para babasahin natin, para mabasa niya, ma-check niya yung contract. Then the next part will now be the negotiation between the parties. Okay? I'll show you the draft, the contract para sila. Sometimes pag malalaking kontrata, usually it's the owner who drafted the contract. Pag maliliit naman, usually lalo na kapag wala experience naman yung client, for example, the end users, yung may maaari lang ng bahay, maliit na bahay, usually the contractor naman yung gumagawa ng kontrata. Okay? Then they read it, mag-negotiate sila. Okay? Pag nagkasundo, usually yan, may tatanggalin, may dadagdag. Engineer, wala ito. Sa client, wala ito. Dapat lagay natin ito sa kontrata. So that's part of the authoring, no? And then during the negotiation na pala. So binabasa nila para sa kontrata, then they negotiate. Okay? Pag sa kontrata pa hindi kayo magkasundo, then huwag na tuloy yung project. Okay? Baka maging-problema na kayo at the end. Okay? So dapat sa kontrata pa lang, sa drafting pa lang, sa authoring pa lang, negotiation pa lang ng kontrata, dapat maayos na. Then after that, it will now be, pag nagkasundo nila para both parties, okay, approve. Okay? So they will now both sign the contract agreement. Okay? Then they will now start the execution of the project. Okay? And then of course, sabi natin kanina, mayroon obligation management or the obligation ni the client or the owner, and ano naman yung obligation ni contractor. Okay? This is the service delivery stage. Then during the contract management cycle, meron din tayo tinatawag na audit and control. First, so hindi naman pwedeng bayaran ni client si contractor na sobra dun sa nagawa niya. So ino-audit natin or titignan natin kung ano yung natapos para based sa contract, yun lang yung babayaran sa kanya. Kaya meron tayo tinatawag na audit and control. And up to the last part of the contract management cycle, of course, the close out or the renewal. Kung may bagong project, renew. Okay? Kung medyo hindi na-satisfy si client sa contractor, pwede hindi na niya i-renew yung contract kung may bago siyang project. Okay? Up to close out. Okay? So, sino ba ang nag-manage ng contract? Of course, we have a management team, contract management team. This is just a small team. Skills need to cover project management, technical, financial, and legal. Okay, and then of course the authority to negotiate. So usually it will be during the stage na ng execution. Of course, it is the project manager who is in charge. No? So, but from time to time, will seek advice from the technical or from the finance guy or from the legal. Okay, to implement the contract. Okay, now we go to the contract management process, which is we're going to discuss in detail one by one. Pero doon na tayo sa hindi ko i-discuss yung pre-contract award kasi it will be discussed by procurement. So I'll just concentrate on the contract management, contract management or the contract administration. Okay, so ano ba part ng or hanggang contract closure? Ano ba part ng importante sa contract management? Ang nilalaman niya, we have the record management, the tracking performance, the payment management, the change management, and the claims management. Okay, so ito na yung administration. Ito na yung paano natin i-control ngayon up to contract closeout. Okay, so ang dami palang ang dami palang process involved in contract management. Akala nyo madali lang, no? So hindi naman ganoon. Madali naman siya kung tama yung pagkakagawa ng kontrata. Okay? Let us define first what is contract administration. Okay? Ano ba ang understanding na sa It requires an understanding of the legal documents for the project and also the commercial intent of the parties. Mas sinabi natin kanina, ano yung siyempre iba yung intention ng owner, iba intention ng contractor, both parties. So the operating, the industry, the community issues associated with the service provisions, and the legislative and regulatory context in which the project operates. So importante rin na alam ng contract administrator, yung nag-administer ng contract, yung regulations, yung rules and regulations dun sa pag-implement ng project. Okay? Let's now start with part of the contract administration now is sabi natin kanina, is the record management. So bakit ba kailangan natin yung record? Huh? Do you think importante ba yung magtago ka ng record during the implementation ng project? Napaka-importante. Okay, bakit? Kasi yun yung pinagbabasihan nyo ng decision making nyo. Okay? So, doon nakalagay, nakasulat, okay? Yung mga importante pinag-usapan nyo, okay? So, what is a record management? It is responsible for the efficient and systematic control of the creation, receipt, maintenance, use, and disposition of records. So, including process for capturing and maintaining evidence of the information about contract administration activities and transactions in the form of records. So, ito yung mga minutes of meeting, okay? Ito yung mga approval ng mga mga testing, okay? So, dapat naka-file yan. May record management. So, kompleto yan. May mga kanya-kanyang folders yan. So, kita niyo yung example ko sa drawing. May kanya-kanyang folders yung bawat records. So, meron tayong records ng minutes of the meeting. Okay? Yung lahat ng mga communications. Okay? From client to contractor, contractor to client. So, lahat yan naka-record. Okay? Meron na tayong yung mga pagpa-approve ng mga samples, naka-record din yan. Okay? So, yung date. Importante dyan yung date. Okay? Tsaka yung sino yung nag-approve. Okay? So, importante ang records management. So, bakit naman natin kailangan i-track yung performance? Okay. Gano'n naman ka-importante ang tracking. So, there are a number of tools available to monitor contractor performance according to contract. So, still inside the contract. So, this, meron tayo na tawag na common way to evaluate or to track the performance of the service provider. Sorry, lagi ko sinasabi contractor, no? That's part of, generally speaking, they are service provider. So kung architectural engineering designer siya, sila yung service provider. Kung construction management consultant, sila rin service provider. Kung contractor, they are also service provider. Okay? So construction industry is a service industry, hindi tayo manufacturing. Okay? Services tayo. So ano yung common ginagamit natin sa sa pag-evaluate ng ng performance? So I think you've familiar kayo sa bar chart, okay, Gantt chart. So doon nakita yung per plan, ano yung tsura niya, ano ba dapat yung dapat na magagawa ngayon, and then ano na yung nagawa. So you compare, okay? So what we call that? That's what we call the S-curve, di ba? Usually may tayo S-curve na for the plan, tapos itignan natin yung S-curve natin actual, nasaan ba siya? Nasa ilalim ba siya? Nasa ibabaw. Kung nasa ilalim siya, that means delay yung project, and kung nasa ibabaw siya, that means ahead yung project as per plan. Okay? Check natin yung performance. Bakit natin tinetest? Check yung performance. Akibat ng pag-test natin, pag-track natin ng performance is yung payment. Okay? Kasi doon natin siya binabayaran. But first part ng payment management is the mobilization cost. It is still part of the contract. Nakalagay sa kontrata, magkano ba ang mobilization cost or down payment na bibigay mo sa contractor? Uy, yan saya naman yan. Wala ka pang ginagawa, meron ka ng pera. Nakalagay yan sa contract. The contractor will receive 10%, 15%, 20%. So kung ano nakalagay sa contract, yun ang susundin natin as mobilization cost or natawag nating down payment of the project. So usually hanggang maximum is 10 at 20. Pero kung maliit lang, the higher the project or the bigger the project, mas mababa yung down payment na binibigay. Mas mababa yung project, mas maliit yung project, mas malaki yung down payment. Usually I can charge 40 to 50% down payment ko. Maliit lang, especially kung short period of time lang gagawin yung project. Kung mga 1 month to 2 months lang, kailangan mas medyo malaki na kagad yung makuha mo. Okay? So saan ba ginagamit ito? Ito yung ginagamit na pag-mobilize mo ng mga materials, equipment, especially mga equipment, kung highway, o sabi nga railway, highway, ano ba kayo? Engineering. So kailangan nyo ng equipment. Kung manggagaling yung equipment nyo sa equipment yard, for example, in Quezon City, nadali nyo sa Pampanga, or anywhere in the Philippines, meron tayo tinatawag na mobilization cost. Okay? So sakay nyo ng truck, so mahal yun. I think per kilometer yata siya. So usually yung mga ganyan, it ranges from 10,000 to 50,000. So depende sa ano. So that's part of the mobilization. Okay? It also used for obtaining bonds. Kung bayad mo ng mga bid ng mga performance bonds, something like that, kasama yun sa mobilization cost. Okay? Especially yung mga permits and licenses, kasama rin yan. Okay? What else? Okay. Nothing else. So, pag nabigyan na ng payment o nabigyan ng mobilization, ito yung tinatawag nating progress payment. So, ano yung basis kanina, ano yung basis ng progress payment? Ito yung kaya natin tinatrack yung performance ng contractor. Kasi dito natin siya babayaran. Kung magkano yung accomplish niya, yun nababayaran sa kanya. Kung accomplish siya ng 20%, babayaran natin siya ng 20% of the contract amount. But meron siyang binabawas. Okay? Kung binabawas ngayon doon yung recoup, tinatawag ng recoupment of down payment, babawas ngayon doon yung binigay ko sa iyo pauna na down payment. Okay? So, kung binigyan ko, kung for example, 1 million yung project, so binigyan ko 20%, which is 200,000. Yung 200,000 naman ngayon yun, babawasan yung ibabawas yung dahan-dahan dun sa progress billing mo or progress payment. Okay? So, kung nag-accomplish ka ng 20%, that means babawasan yung 20% mo ng 20% din ng 200,000. So, yung babawasan ka ng which is 40,000, something like that. Then, babawasan din ng 10% retention. O yun na sabi natin kanina para sa guarantee. Okay? So, the accuracy required of this field measurement is determined by the type of contract involved. So, ano ba yung contract involved usually sa construction? So, meron tayong usually ang tinatawag na lump sum. Okay? Lump sum amount, meron tayong unit cost or unit price contract wherein you pay the contractor based on the accomplished niya per unit measurement. For example, nakahukay siya ng 100 cubic meter of earthworks. Meron siya tinatawag na unit price, yun babayad sa kanya. Kung ilan yung nahukay niya, times the unit price, yun yung makukolekta niya. That is for unit price. Pero usually, pag buildings, lump sum ang contract. Okay, lump sum ang 100 million, 100 million. Something like that. Okay? O, ito yung retainage. Sabi ko kanina, bakit ba natin re-retain? Kumukuha ng retention money ang owner. So, majority construction project, particularly public works project, ay kailangan ng involves some retention or a portion of earned funds to the contractor. So typically, this has been 10% of the contract amount. So every time na magbibill si contractor, binabawasan siya ng 10% up to the contract close out of the project. Okay, it is also kasama rin to sa sa kontrata. Ba't nakalagay sa kontrata kung ilan yung i-retain ng client. I think sa US, medyo binaba nila yung retention. Kasi masyado malaki yung 10%, especially kung malaki masyado yung project. For example, 1 billion yung project, ang i-retain mo 10%, medyo malaking pera. Okay? So, 100 million. So, yung binaba nila, kapag malaki yung project, binawa nila I think 5% talaga yung retention. But however, in the Philippines, I think we're still using 10% retention. Okay? So, retention money is usually released after 1 year for completion of the project to cover construction defects within 1 year warranty. Okay? But sometimes, kapag gusto mo makuha naman yung pera mo, retention money mo kaagad, what you're going to issue a guarantee bond. Okay? Yun yung kaninang bond na sinabi. Pero mas mura. I think that's something premium lang ng bond na babayaran mo. Mag-issue ka sa para sa owner, okay? Para kung i-release ni client yung 10% mo, pero ibigyan mo siya ng guarantee fund. Para kung if ever magkaroon ng defects at hindi ka mo datinan yung defect, the owner has the bond. Sasagutin ng insurance bond yung defect ng project. Okay? That is the maintenance. O ano naman yung LD? Discuss natin kanina. Okay? So traditionally, the assessment of LD against the contractor monetary losses suffered by the owner as a result of contractor's delay. Oh, so sabi natin kanina, pag alangan namang unlimited yung time. No? So siyempre si owner o si client, meron siya hinahabol na completion, time completion. For example, condominium yan. Nangako rin siya sa mga owner, nakabili ng unit, na ita-turn over niya by the end of December. So pag lumagpas si contractor by the end of December, charge naman niya kayo siyempre yung ng penalty or liquidated damages si contractor to cover those i-charge naman nung nakabili ng unit sa kanila. So usually it is 1/10 of 1% of the remaining works to be completed. So kung 100 million yung project mo, tapos kunya 95% completed ka na. So ilan na tira? Meron pa tirang 5 million. Tama ba? So 1/10 1% of 5 million for every day of delay, yun yung i-charge mo ngayon dun sa contractor. Ibabawas mo yun sa contractor sa final payment niya. Okay? So those are, ito naman in favor siyempre sa contractor sa owner, just in case mo-delay si contractor. So kung kayo contractor, dapat di kayo mo-delay para hindi kayo ma-charge ng liquidated damages. And now we come to the final payment. Okay, so ano ang kailangan? Kailangan the certificate of completion, or substantial completion has been has been filed. The contractor will apply for final payment. So although the form use is the same as dun sa progress billing or sa progress monthly payment, there are several additional requirements. Marami na additional. Usually, nasabit ka na ng manual of operation manual sa client, kung paano i-operate yung elevator, paano operate yung escalator, something like that. So lahat na yun ay ibibigay mo yun sa client. So the contractor must pay all bills, other indebtedness, o dapat bayad lahat ni contractor yung mga supplier niya, wala siyang pagkakautang. Okay? So under certain contracts, he or she must submit receipts, releases, and waivers of liens. So dapat wala siyang atraso kahit kanino. Okay? Consent of surety must be obtained where a surety is involved. Okay? So hanggang final payment, maraming trabaho ano nakalagay sa kontrata. Part also of the contract administration now is the change. Okay, management. Medyo wala kasi project na halos lahat ng project na I myself na-experience ko meron pagbabago. No? So it is standard practice in construction contracts to allow the owner, okay, to the owner to he has the right to make changes in the work. So syempre, pag nakita niya, ay, parang hindi yata bagay itong nilagay natin. So he will make a written request sa contractor or sa designer. Sabi ko, can we change this? Okay. So gagawa ngayon ng change order request si client. Kung ang change ay galing kay owner, siya ang gagawa ng sabihin niya kay designer o kay construction management consultant, pag-gawin mo ng change order ito. Ayoko nung nilagay ni contractor based on design. Pero kung tama naman si contractor, nilagay niya yung based on design, pero ayaw lang ni client, pwede niya palitan yan. Of course, pag pinalitan niya, meron tayong tinatawag na addition and deletion of work. Okay? Mas maganda sana kung hindi pa niya nakakabit para pwede pang tanggalin, i-delete natin yung work na yun, then kung ano ipapalit mo can have additional cost. Okay? So usually pag sa additional cost, additional cost siya. Ano daw? Okay. So that's the problem with the online, ano, no? Minsan nakakalimutan, napipindot yata yung ano yun. Way. Meron tayong time mamaya for question answers. So sometimes it also involves changes in time, okay? Or order of work. Ano yung dapat unahin, ano yung dapat na matapos. Ba, sabihin ni owner, Mr. Contractor, tapusin muna natin yung commercial site ba? Kung commercial and residential building siya, mataas yung nasa taas yung residential part. So sabihin ni client, patapos mo muna nga yung commercial para at least napaparental ko yung commercial part. So ginagawa ng iba yun. Okay? So makita nyo, first 2 stories, meron na siyang commercial, na functional na yung commercial part niya, pero yung residential, hindi pa. Okay? So the owner has the right to do that. That's what we call part of the change management. Okay, ito pala. So, one way, at least have you change order, formal document alters some conditions of the contract document. So the change order may alter the contract price, schedule, payments, completion date, or plans on specifications. Okay? So, meron mga common categories or conditions generally to give rise to the need for contract change order. Ito yung differing site conditions, nagbago yung nakalagay sa plano, ang lupa niya malambot, pero nung 1 meter lang pala malambot, pag hukay niya ng malalim, matigas na pala. So, pwede siyang mag-file ng change order. So, errors in emission and plus specifications, minsan meron nakalimutan, hindi na ilagay sa plano, it's part of change order. So, changes instituted by the regulatory agency. Okay, sino ba yung regulatory agency? The building officials, okay, of the municipal or city. Okay. Then, meron tayong design changes, overruns and underruns, and the quantities beyond limits. So, nakalagay sa, kung unit price contract siya, for example, nakalagay 100 cubic, yung pala 120 cubic. So, nagkakaroon ng change order. So factors affecting time of completion. So for example, bumagyo na bumagyo, so madidelay siya, so mag-file siya ngayon ng change ng time extension. So that's what we call time extension. Then mababago yung duration or completion of the time of the project para hindi ma-charge ng liquidated damages yung contractor. Okay? Especially, usually mga force majeure, yung mga unforeseen. Okay. Okay. Also part of the contract administration is ito yung medyo malungkot na part yung claims and disputes kapag merong hindi pagkakaunawaan na between the client and the service provider. Okay. So the term claim applies to the differences that are developed during the life of the contract under protest and potential claims. So dalawa yung pwedeng claim, yung pwede tayong under protest, pwedeng potential claims, and that are not yet resolved at the time of the contractor returns the proposed final estimate of the amount of additional money or time asked for. So ano ba yung protest and potential claims? So when we say potential claims, so the term applies to any differences arising out of the performance of the work. It might reasonably lead to the latter filing of a formal claim by the contractor if the difference cannot be resolved in the field. Okay? So ano ba yung nasabi nating potential claim ng contractor, for example, sa owner? In my case, I think one of my claim is yung nakalagay sa contract ay enamel paint lang. Tapos nung ginagawa na namin yung project, sabi niya, gusto ko yung katulad ng ginawa mo dun sa kabilang project mo. Makintab siya, acrylic paint pala yung naisip niya. Sabi ko, bang mula po sa kontrata natin yan, nalagay po sa specification of contract is enamel paint. Sabi ko, hindi ko naman intindihan yan, basta gusto ko ganun eh. So, magpa-file ngayon ako ng change order. Tapos ayaw niya bayaran. No? So, doon kayo magkakaroon ngayon ng potential. Kasi kung gusto mong maging acrylic finish yan, this will be the additional cost. Okay? So hanggang sa medyo hindi kaya hindi ko babayaran yan kasi pinakita mo sa akin na ganyan eh. Tapos yung gagawin mo sa akin iba. So pero ang liwanag sa kontrata na nung time na during the negotiation, sabi niya wala siyang budget. Pero kaya ganoon na lang ginawa ko. Pero nung actual na pala, yun pala yung gusto niya. So nagkaroon kami ng dispute. Okay? So nag-protest. The term protest refers to dispute arising out of the issuance of a contract change ordered by the architect or engineer against the objections of the contractor. So ito naman, nag-object naman si contractor dun sa pinapagawa ni architect or engineer. So that means, sabi ng contractor, hindi possible yung pinapagawa mo. So nag-protesta si contractor, the service provider. Okay? So medyo magkakaroon niya ngayon ng claims and protest kung sino mananalo. Kapag hindi sila nagkasundo, doon na magkakaroon ng disputes. Okay? So bakit magkakaroon ng claims and disputes? So contractor claims and disputes arise out of the poorly drafted or ambiguous contract document. So hindi maliwanag yung kontrata or masyadong bias or something like that. So minsan experience na pirma minsan yung owner or client, lalo pagka small lang, bahay lang nang gagawin tapos may kontrata tapos hindi niya binasa yung kontrata, pinirmahan niya. So at the end of habang ginagawa mo ngayon, at the end of the project, tsaka kayo magkakaroon ng di pagkakaintindihan. Okay? Disagreements. So magkakaroon ng disagreement between the contractor and the owner, and increasingly including the architect and engineer also, regarding interpretation of the plans and specifications. So magkakaroon ng hindi ganyan pagkakaindig sa plano eh. Tapos sabihin minsan ng client, hindi naman ako marunong bumasa ng plano eh. Sabihin niya. So, pero hindi mo kasalanan yun. So hindi rin sabihin ni client, hindi ko naman alam basahin yung plano. Pero part of the contract is this. So magkakaroon kayo ngayon ng claims and disputes. Okay. Paano ba nagiging dispute? Yung risk, siyempre malaki, di ba? Not clearly assigned, magkakaroon ng conflict. Pag yung conflict, not clearly managed, hindi na-manage yung conflict, magkakaroon ng claims. Kapag yung claims hindi rin not clearly resolved, hindi na-resolve ba yung claim, nagkakaroon ngayon ng dispute. Saan ngayon napupunta yung dispute? Okay? So, ano lang ba yan? Bahala na? No. So, nakalagay sa kontrata kung kung magkakaroon ng problema o di pagkakaunawaan, dadalhin niyan sa korte. Or, hindi muna sa korte, dadalhin niyan sa arbitration. Okay? Bakit arbitration muna? Nakalagay sa contract yan na kasi usually pag korte kaagad, alam natin, pag court, lawyer kaagad dyan. So pag lawyer, si lawyer lang panalo. In any disputes, hindi na nanalo between both parties. Ang panalo lagi doon yung lawyer. Okay? Kasi sa kanya pumunta yung pares lawyer. So kaya usually the arbitrator is also a technical guy. Okay? So bakit technical guy? Hindi naman siya lawyer pero nagpa-practice siya as a law doon sa technical part. Okay? Usually hindi naiintindihan kasi minsan ng lawyer or attorney yung hindi pagkakaunawaan ni client and the service provider. So it's better to have a technical guy na nagkakaintindihan. Usually it's also an architect or a civil engineer or an engineer na nakakaintindi dun sa hindi pinagkakaunawaan ng client and the service provider. Okay? So arbitration is a voluntary submission of a dispute to one or more impartial persons for final and binding determination. So dapat doon pa lang sa arbitration, magkaroon ng liwanag kung sino talaga yung nasa katwiran at sino yung wala sa katwiran. Okay? Para wala na babayarang abogado. Okay? This is valid in legal hindi siya lawyer pero he can make a decision about the disputes between two parties. Okay? I think one of our former dean is also an arbitrator. Okay? Sa legal siya. Pero a civil engineer siya. Okay, so dumating na tayo sa, I think I'm still on time or 1 hour na yata ako. Sorry to medyo humaba yata ako. So, contract close out. So, still part of the, paano natin i-manage yung kontrata is the close out. Ay, madali na, sa papalakpa ka na, madali na, close out na, no, hindi pa rin. Napakahirap pa rin ng close out. Minsan, yung, tumatagal din yan. Okay? Construction contract is the final phase of the construction project and a vital part of the construction management services. Pero napaka-hirap din yan. Okay? Especially ito na yung binibigay mo na lahat ng mga turnover mo na lahat ng lahat ng bagay sa client, especially mga manuals. Okay? And dapat pag nagtapos na lahat ng punch list. Okay? Ano yung punch list? Ito yung mga defects, small defects na nakikita during the inspection na kailangang ma-resolve ni service provider or the contractor. Okay? So usually 5% na lang, 30% na lang natitira pero ang tagal pa ginagawa. No? Kaya mahirap siya. So ano yung documents na kailangan submit? Yung certificate of substantial completion, completed punch list, sabi ko na kanina, the design team approvals, inspection certificates, and then we have to file a certificate of occupancy sa municipal involved or city involved, okay, the lien waivers, and then the final pay application. Hanggang sa mabayaran si contractor ni o the service provider ni owner. Okay? So matagal. So usually ang maganda lang sa service provider yung down payments of isa, no? Kasi wala pa siya ginagawa, bayad na siya. Pero pag tingnan mo sa end, tapos na yung project niya, meron pa siya naiiwan. Malaki pa, usually 10%. Your retention, 10%. And usually, yung final payment mo na 10%. Kung 10% pa naiiwan mo na payment. So usually 10 per 20% din. So umpisa, panalo si contractor sa payment. Pero sa huli, si client naman. Tapos yung project, may hawak pang pera si owner or the client. Okay? So for my conclusion, so paano pa natin aayos ang natin, ang contract management. So as I recommend, so for contract management to be effective, dapat the project or the contract managers need not only a strong, only have a strong knowledge of basics, but also a detailed practical understanding of commercial and legal dimensions of contract management. Okay, so I'm happy that as early as now, medyo interested na kagad kayo sa contract management, no, and procurement. So parang gusto niyo kagad ng kontrata. So that's part of the basic requirements in putting up your own company, whether it's design company, whether it's construction management consultant company or contractor. You need to know the basic of a contract. Kasi magkakaroon kayo contract agreement between the client or kung kayo yung may-ari, kung developer naman kayo, you will have to have a contract with your designer, your CMS consultant, and your contractor. Okay? So it is a practical understanding is vital to the success of the project management and the contract management team. Okay? In implementing effective contract management practices. So the training will be mandatory for employers involved in the project, in the management of projects. Okay, so I think that's it. So thank you very much for your listening, and I hope you learned something about our topic, contract management. Thank you very much, Joseph. Stop. How do I end this?
Sir, may po sa stop sharing. Ayan.
Dito. Ay.
Okay na po.
Okay na? Okay.
Thank you for the very informative discussion, Dr. Wanson. It is indeed important to know for contract management to be effective, the project or the contract managers need not only a strong knowledge of the basics, but also a detailed practical understanding of commercial and legal dimensions of contract management.
Am I Going to answer na ba yung mga questions sa chat or later
I
on?
couldn't agree more, Rowan.
Later, sir.
Okay.
Later. I couldn't agree more, Rowan. Dr. Wanson undoubtedly explained contract management in a very informative and comprehensive manner.
Okay.
And but before we proceed to our open forum, allow us to recognize first our dearest participants in today's webinar coming from different parts of the country, including those from outside the Philippines. So first, we have here from COA. We also have from CTU, DILG, DMCI, DPWH.
Oh, thank you.
To our 227 Zoom participants and 130 plus Facebook Live participants, thank you for your time. And we also have participants from the PUP, including the graduates, the students, and the faculty.
And aside from our participants from those mentioned industries and universities, we have also from we also have participants from FPEI. Apology po if hindi po namin ma-mention yung full name po ng industry na kinabibilangan niyo po. And we also have from IIEE UAE and IOC. We also have here participants from LGU Las Piñas and MMSU. Siguro pa putulin po muna natin doon yung pag-recognize sa ating mga participants because there are a lot of involved or there are a lot of participants coming from different parts of the country and we want everyone to be recognized.
And now we are opening the floor for the question and answer. And the program committee asked questions from the Zoom participants as well as the FB Live. So for the first question from PUP Open University System, Eduardo D. Meliano from a Zoom participant po. Here in the Philippines, the FEX liability period for a government project is only 1 year. So with the bond, ayun po yung question niya.
Ano daw? The guarantee bond will cover the kasi usually, di ba, kasi may retention money tayong hinohold si client to cover the defects nga. Kaya, siyempre, kung ayaw naman ni contractor na ma-hold yung 10% niya, which is, for example, lalo na kung malaki yung retention money na percent, it involves 10 million o 100 million. So, mag-issue siya ngayon ng guarantee bond. Yung guarantee bond, yun yung magko-cover dun sa sa hawak-hawak yun, para may hawak, may guarantee, may hawak na insurance si owner na babalikan ni contractor yung defects within a year, within a period of 1 year. Ngayon, after 1 year at wala naman nangyari defects, then makukuha na ni contractor yung 10% niya. Kaya nga, sabi niya, kung gusto mas maaga makuha, mag-issue ng guarantee bond. Pero kung ayaw niya mag-issue, for example, in my case, may contractor ako in one developer, like for example, MDC. So, wala akong pambili ng bond, ng guarantee bond. So, inabot ng 1 year. So, within a year, wala nangyari defects. So, after a year, nakuha ko yung retention money. So, after 1 year at nagkaroon defect, ay hindi ko na sagot yun. Kasi nga, 1 year lang yung guarantee ng project. Okay.
Thank you for that answer, sir.
Thank you po. So, for our next question po from our Zoom participant, Carlito Luceño from PUP. Ang tanong niya po ay, di ba po merong pinapapasok na mga kontrata ang gobyerno ng Pilipinas para tapusin ang mga construction project tatapos?
Ano ka, medyo nagpaputol ka.
Ulitin ko na lang po, sir. Ang question po, di ba po may pinapasok na mga kontrata ang gobyerno ng Pilipinas para tapusin ang mga construction project? Bakit po may mga pagkakataon na hindi ito natatapos?
Oo, maraming reasons siya. Ang hirap sa contract yan, no. Government projects kasi usually siyempre hindi niyan walang financial benefits yan. More on benefits yan, more on sa atin. Sa tayo kasi tayo gumagamit ng kalsada, tayo gumagamit ng mga other utilities, no. So there are really big projects na minsan nahihinto because of so many reasons, no. Most likely some are political reasons. And so kaya ang ginagawa ngayon ng government is yung what we call the build project, wherein the private ang nag-initiate ng project. Sila nagpapondo ng project. Then syempre para mabawi naman nila yung ininvest nila na fund na invest nila sa project, meron silang tinatawag na toll fee para yan yung mga tinatawag natin yung mga skyways and others na kaya siya meron toll fee para mabawi but those are government projects. Pero ang private ang nagpopondo. Kasi yung sinasabi niya na malaki projects na hindi tapos, medyo iba yung reason. So maraming I am not in a position to answer kung bakit hindi siya natapos, especially kung hindi ko naman nakikita. Maraming reasons. Sometimes more of political.
Okay po, thank you, sir. Another question po from Carlito ulit. Controversial issue po ang pinasok na kontrata ng Pilipinas sa China kasi bawal raw ilabas ng gobyerno ang mga nakasaad sa kontrata. Legal po ba iyon? Kasi taong bayan ang nagbabayad ng tax. Ayun po.
Naku, isa po mahirap sagutin yan. Medyo, tama naman analysis niya. This is really a critical or controversial issue na may halong politics na top na talagang I don't think I'll need to answer that because of the political views.
Yes, sir. Understood po.
Kaya, siya. Tama naman sabi analysis niya. Controversial. Sige.
Next question po from Oliver Gonzalez from TIP. What are the common conditions on the contract for force majeure? Force majeure.
Force majeure. Actually, force majeure is yung mga typhoon na malalakas na unforeseen yan, especially by earthquake, something like that. So those are mga force majeure. Minsan yung war or something like civil wars or what, for example yung merong mga location or mga place na project na merong mga how do I call that, NPAs, something like that. So pinapatigil na it is a ground for suspension of the project para for the safety of all the stakeholders or involved. But that will be grounds for time extension, mga force majeure na pangyayari. Usually the force majeure are yung mga typhoons. Malakas. So talaga kailangan stop the project. Especially kung kalsada ginagawa mo, hindi ka pwede kang magbuhos ng kalsada kung mabagyo. So kailangan nung bilangan yung araw na umagyo, then you can file for time extension for that. Mga force majeure.
Okay po. Thank you po ulit, sir. Another question po from Zoom participant ulit. Jason Narito from PUP. Safe po ba na mag-proceed of construction works through notice of proceed NTP versus sa mga signed contracts prepared by the owner or the developer?
Ay, panaintindihan. NTP is also issued by the owner. So when say pagka nag-initial ka, usually pagka after signing the contract, So kasi di ba, nagbidding tapos nanalo na, dahil meron tayong tinatawag na notice of award. Ibig sabihin nun, i-award na sa'yo yung kontrata, yung project. Pero hindi ka pa nagsisimula. Nagsisimula ka lang kapag upon issuance of the notice to proceed. Pag na-receive the notice to proceed, sabihin doon, palagay doon, you can now start the project within 10 days. So within 10 days, dapat magsimula ka ng project. Yun ang tawag na NTP. Pag in-issue ka ng NTP, dapat gawin mo talaga. Dapat you have to proceed. Pag in-issue ka lang ng NTP.
Okay, sir. Another question po from Kiko Asis, Zoom participant. When do we issue a guarantee bond, sir? Before or after DL period?
DL?
Again, when do we issue a guarantee bond, sir? Before or after DL period?
What's DL? Deadline?
Defect liability.
Defect liability. Actually, kapag hanggat may depekto pa, if during construction, kasama pa yung the defect liabilities kung may mangyaring defect dun sa sa project within a period of 1 year. So, upon completion of the project, pwede na siya mag-issue ng guarantee bond. Okay? Para ma-process din yung retention money niya, para makuha niya yung retention money. Kasi yung retention money na hawak ni client, yun yung magko-cover doon sa mga defects niya within the period of 1 year Kaya lang, kung malaki nga siya, so pwedeng kunin ni contractor yun, pero mag-issue siya ng guarantee bond. So pag nag-issue siya ng guarantee bond, the guarantee bond naman ngayon will now ensure the client na babalikan ni contractor yung mga defects dun sa project within a period of 1 year. Okay, sabi ko nga kanina, hindi ako nag-issue ng guarantee bond, may sa project ko na hindi ako nag-issue ng guarantee bond, nagkita ako ng 1 year na baka may mangyari. So nagkita ako ng 1 year, tsaka ko lang nakuha yung retention money ko. Pwede hindi ka mag-issue ng guarantee bond. Pero dapat, may defects, may liable ka ron sa defects. Kailangan mo balikan yun. Or else, pag hindi mo binalikan yun, ibabawas ni client yung ginastos siya sa defecto mo dun sa retention money mo. Kaya siya may hawak ng 10%. Okay? So, pag hindi mo binalikan yun, kukunin niya yun. Pero pag wala nangyari, sana within a year, wala nangyari dun sa project mo, walang defecto, then makukuha mo yung nabuo yung retention money ng 10%. Okay? So, pwede ka hindi mag-issue ng guarantee bond, pwedeng mag-issue. So, depende sa yun. Kung ayaw mo mag-bond, hintay ka 1 year. Okay? After 1 year, wala nangyari, kuha mo na yung mo. Tapos after 1 year, bawa, 365 days, 1 year, di ba? Yung ika-366 may nangyari, hindi mo nasagot yun. Kasi 1 year lang yung 1 year lang yun.
Okay, sir. Another question po from Edgardo D. Melanio. If the contractor already received the completion certificate, is it necessary to request for turnover certificate to the client?
Turnover? Yeah,
Yes, sir. Turnover certificate.
Accepted na ni client yung it will be turnover now by the contractor. So pag turnover na niya yun, dapat nakalagay daw na sabihin niya na kapag may nangyari, kung meron ng defecto, may nagkaroon ng leak or something, sasagutin ni contractor yun within a period of 1 year. So pag nag-issue ng completion si client, acceptance, mag-issue ng turnover, ita-turnover na niya sa kanya. O yung nakalista kanina, yung binigay ko kanina, di ba? Bibigay may manual, something like that. So lahat ng documents, pati certificate, each of that documents, bibigay mo kay client. The-turnover mo lahat sa kanya.
Okay, sir. Thank you po. So, another question po from our Zoom participant, Mary Jane Gashas from PUPOUS. How much or percentage supposedly the bonds? Percentage of bonds daw po.
Depende sa klase naman, bid bond, warranty guarantee bond, I think 0.5% lang yan. O yung premium na babayaran mo. 0.5 to 1. Depende rin sa amount. Merong the insurance company or the bank insurance company or the bank has a parang matrix or table. Kung yung amount, may certain amount, may certain percentage. Hindi siya uniform, hindi siya para-parehas. I think the lower the higher yung percentage. Habang lumalaki yung project, lumiliit din yung premium.
Okay, sir. Thank you po. Another question po from Rowan Villegas. Hi, sir. Do we need to amend the contracts if we have change orders?
That's amending. Kaya ano tayo, ang amendments doon is yung actually ang amendment kasi parang may babaguhin ka sa kontrata itself eh. Ang change order kasi merong mababago doon sa project na gusto ng client, magkakaroon lang ng written agreement na mag-propose si contractor mo propose ito po yung gusto niyong pang changes, ito po yung cost niya. Pag nag-agree ngayon si client, magpipirmahan sila ng change order. Kasi nakalagay naman sa kontrata na kapag may change order, dapat it should be written, agreed, written. So nakalagay doon, kailangan muna yung cost, deduction ba o addition ba, yung magiging changes. Kasi hindi man lahat ng changes is positive. Meron din negative changes. Basta may pinatanggal si owner. Mr. Contractor, ayoko na niyan. Huwag na ilagay yan. So magkakaroon ng changes to sa gagawin sila kasulatan na tatanggalin ko ito yung magiging deduction mo sa contract account. Okay? Not necessarily i-amend yung kontrata. Kasi nakalagay naman sa kontrata yung change orders. Kung ano gagawin.
Okay, sir. Connected din to, sir. From Lay Ann Nuestro, kailangan rin po bang i-amend? Kailangan rin po ba ng amendment ng contract if may time extension?
Hindi rin. Mag-apply ka lang din ng time extension. Hindi siya amendment. Kasi pag sinabi mo amendment, magkakaroon ka ng pag-waive ng kontrata. Hindi mo naman yung nabagong kontrata. Nakalagay sa kontrata na kapag may time extension, magpapile si contractor ano yung mga reasons niya. So, ano rin yun? Written agreement din siya. Napipirmahan both parties pag-agreehan ni client and the contractor, yung time extension. Yun yung tawag natin kanina na force majeure, kung meron bagyo, inusurat niya yun. Hindi siya amendment. But it is written in the contract na pag may time extension, ito yung gagawin mo. The contractor will file, something like that. So hindi siya amendment. It is just a written procedure na gagawin ni the contractor, the service provider, in case na magkaroon ng gusto niya mag-file ng time extension.
Okay, sir. From Engineer Bianes po, what is the main difference of time extension and suspension? For example, na-delay ang supply ni contractor due to logistics problem sa part ng supplier. Then, nagkaroon po ito ng effect sa project duration. Ano po ang pwedeng issue? Issue.
Magkaiba talaga yung time extension at time suspension. No? Usually sa government project, yung suspension. Usually na reason for suspension is, for example, may right of way na may tatama na so tinatawag na right of way acquisition. During the negotiation, hindi sila magkaintindihan. Ang tagal na nila nag-uusap, hindi matuloy-tuloy yung kalsada because of the problem of right of way acquisition. So, pwede ka mag-file ng suspension. Magkasundo muna kayo kung magkakasundo ba kayo sa tatamaan na kalsada o hindi. Kung hindi kayo kakasundo, isuspend muna natin yung project. Okay? So, ibig sabihin nun, legit during the time na suspended yun, dapat wala na rin ginagawa si contractor kasi suspended nga eh. So, wala rin bayad syempre pag wala pero hindi siya ma-charge ng penalty. Hindi siya ma-delay kasi si owner nag-suspend. Sa suspension kasi, usually it's the owner who suspend the project. Suspend niya. Huwag mo natin tuloy kasi di pa nagkakasundo sa dadaanan. Suspension niya. Pero kapag time extension kasi, ang may kasalanan walang kasalanan si owner. So during the implementation of the project, nagkaroon ng problema. For example, malakas yung bagyo, kaya nagkaroon ng something calamity sa disaster, something like that. As long as it is part of kasi nakalista rin naman sa kontrata kung ano yung valid reason for force majeure. Okay? Yun lang ang valid reason para mag-file ng time extension. Pag wala rin sa kontrata yung force majeure na reason na yun, hindi ka pwede mag-file ng time extension. Okay? So that's the big difference between suspension and time extension. Pag suspension, usually the owner is nagsasabi na, suspend mo natin yung project kasi marami pa problema. Hindi natin na-acquire yung lote, something like that. So pag suspended ka, hindi gumagalaw yung time mo. Hindi gumagalaw yung day mo. Hanggang sa i-lift yung suspension. Pag i-lift yung suspension, then proceed ka na ulit. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you po. Another question po. In case there is issue between project technical documents, example po yung project plans versus specification, which document to follow accordingly to the hierarchy of technical document in the project?
Okay, that's very controversial. No? Actually, lagi tinatanong yan. Ano ba ang susunod? Yung plans, kung meron discrepancy between plans and specifications, ano ang susunod? Usually, it's a narrative. Usually, it's a narrative. Pero kapag nakalagay sa kontrata, kaya kami contract eh. I-specify sa contract kung ano masusunod, yung technical plans ba o yung plans ba or specs. Kung wala sa kontrata, it's usually the specs. The written or the narrative specifications. Kaya napaka-critical ng pagsulat ng narrative. Nakalagay sa narrative specification 5,000 PSI, tapos nakalagay sa plano 3,000 PSI. Masunod yung sa written specifications. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Pero kung nakalagay sa kontrata, masunod yung plano. Pero usually, pag wala, it's the written specifications.
Okay, sir. Noted. From our FB participant po, Danilo Sardan, how about unbooked claims and VAT differential po?
What do you got unbooked?
Unbooked claims daw po. And VAT differential.
Hindi siya, hindi niya yung wala sa libro, ibig sabihin.
Yes po.
Tapos, anong tanong niya?
Ano lang po, yun lang po yung naka-state. How about unbooked claims and VAT differential po?
Anong question doon?
Ayun lang.
Parang state niya lang. Basta mga VAT differentials, accounting procedures yan eh. No? So, usually VAT is estimated as that's siyempre yung overall in government projects 5% siya ng overall direct cost kasi ang materials kasi may VAT input na siya ng 12%. So hindi na siya sinasama. Kaya the total sa total niya 5% lang ang ina-add na VAT input sa unit cost, sa unit price analysis. Okay. Hindi ko nakuha yung unbook.
Bitin po yung question, sir.
Okay. Bitin.
Opo. Next question po. If a certain floor purpose is changed, say residential to commercial or storage area, do we need to inform this to the structural engineer? What
Yes,
are the parties involved in the change proposal, including the local government?
Yes, para makakarating hanggang building officials. Kasi change of occupancy eh. Di ba? Pag pinala mo na occupancy mo ay office, tapos ginawa mo residential, mababago siya. So, ang una mong i-inform niya siyempre, yung designer, especially the structural designer, the architect and the structural. So, mababago yung loading niyan eh. Okay, pag nabago ang loading, then i-redesign yan in such a way that it will makakayanan niya yung loading ng kung ano yung change na ginawa. Okay, kung ginawa storage, iba na yung storage, di ba? So, mas mabigat yung loading niya. So, ipabaguhin niya yung design. Then, at the same time, i-suspend mo na siyempre yung project kung lalo na kung ongoing siya. Then, ipapwede niya ng change dun sa municipality involved. Kasi, iba na magiging magiging tax yan pagdating sa kasi di ba kung commercial siya o residential siya, magkaiba yun eh. Magkaiba ng taxes yun eh. Kaya dapat ma-inform ang municipality or the city na kung nasaan yung project. So meron changes siya. The engineers, the designer muna ang involved dyan. Ang magbabago.
Okay, sir. From Joanna Santos po, Zoom participant. Clarify ko lang if ang penalty for liquidated damages sa time extension na 1/10 of 1% is per day or we have a standard po?
Per day siya. The 1.1% is per day of the remaining. So for example, sabi ko kanina kung let's say 1 million, tapos 90% completed pala siya, pero dapat 100 na siya. So may iiwan siyang 10%, which is 100,000. So 1/10 of 1% of 100,000, it will be charged to you every day hanggang hindi mo natatapos yung project. That's
Okay,
the big,
sir.
that's the usual 1/3 of 1%. Pero sabi niya kanina, pwede ba maiba? Yes, pwede maiba. Depending sa agreement pag pinag-usapan ng client and the contractor yun. Okay. Usually ako nga nung time na pwede nga hindi ka maglagay ng ano ng LD kung pero safe yun sa contractor pero unfair yun sa owner. Lalo na kung ang owner ang gagamitin niya kailangan niyang ma-occupy kaagad yung structure in a certain period of time. So unfair yun kaya naglalagay ng liquidated damages para to be safe sa owner. Okay. Per day yun. 1/3 of 1% of remaining was per day.
Okay po. Another question po from Carl and Domingo of DILG. Regarding VAT on projects, what percent will be accepted to be used in POW of projects?
Project overhead. Usually di ba may tinatawag na DUPA, no? Direct yung price analysis. Direct. The derivation of yung price analysis. Sa baba niya, usually sa government accepted is 5% ng total. Kasi hindi naman pwedeng 12% kasi may VAT input na yung yung materials. Kaya in-average yan. Kinupute yan using na mas malaki ang part ng materials, which is usually 40-50%. So since may VAT input yun, hindi mo pwedeng multiply ng 12%. So usually 12% is yung yung labor mo and equipment. 12%, nag-atik ka 12% VAT. Pero to average it, yun lang 5%. So tinatawag may materials, labor, equipment, dagdag ka ng and the overhead, dagdag ka ng 5%. Kasama yan lahat. Overhead cost. 5% na dagdag sa VAT.
Okay po, sir. Another question po from Junrey Navarez. Good day, Dr. Wanson. Thank you very much for the insight on construction contracts. I would just like to ask, what if the contract stipulated a different computation for liquidated damages and not the usual 1/10 per day delayed? Will it still be valid?
Pwede yan. Usually, especially kung maliit lang yung project, for example, the project's only 1 million, something like that. Maliit lang lalabas na doon. Baka siya overlit, talo-talo pa si owner. So, pwede niya lagay doon sa kunyari, okay, pag nadelay ka, 1,000 per day. Pag nakalagay sa kontrata, 1,000 per day, 1,000 per day. So, not the usual one. It's still valid kasi yun ang nilagay sa kontrata eh. Okay? The usual is 1/10 of 1%, pero sabi ko nga, kung ano na pagkasunduan nyo, kung ayaw ni owner nun, kasi nalilitan siya, malit lang yung project, pwede ba, $1,000 per day, every time malitelay ka, na hindi mo tatapos yung 1,000 per charge ko sa'yo. Pwede yun. As long as it is stipulated in the contract. Yun yung magiging liquidated damages. That's
Okay,
valid.
sir. Thank you po. From Kimberly Gamboa naman po. How about the damage caused by force majeure? Who's responsible in the repair? Is it covered by CARI? The project is still on defect liability period.
So, during implementation, kung during the time implementation nagkaroon nagkaroon ng calamities or something like that, insurance yun. Pwede may claims insurance yun. Insurance claims yun. Pero kapag natapos talaga yung tapos na-complete mo na project, nagkaroon ng calamity or something, insurance pa rin sasagot doon. Pero ibang insurance na nung client. Kasi ang building kasi may insurance. For example, I own a condominium project. May insurance ako binabayaran. Doon sa, if ever what happened to the, may sagot na insurance. So, kung during the construction, contractors all risk. Ang sagot.
Okay po, sir. Another question po from Tyrell Jude Peralta naman po. After close out and project turnover to the owner, what protection does a small general contractor could have to legally hold against if there was an unforeseeable circumstances like natural calamities, tsunamis, earthquakes, etc.?
Pag turnover mo na yung na-turnover mo na yung project, ang liability mo lang is more on dun sa leak and yun sa ginawa mo. Pero pag may force majeure, for example like earthquake or something, hindi sagot ng contractor yun. Kasi force, kaya nga, force. Ang sagot mo lang doon sa defects mo, defects liability mo lang is yung quality na trabaho na ginawa mo. Sabi, plastering, kumapak, na then liability mo yan. Pero pag nagkaroon ng force majeure, hindi liability ng contractor. Insurance pa rin.
Okay, sir. From Nico Raymond Manito naman po. If the first bidding is failed bidding, can we change the name posted in the field JEPs or change or alter the plan in the second posting?
Pagka nagkaroon ng failure of bidding, meron ulit siya, i-re-rebid, papa-rebid yan. And then pwede madagdagan yung number of bidders. Or kapag talaga nag-fail bidding, ibig sabihin, may mali doon sa estimate. Kasi hindi kaya tanggapin ng ibig sabihin, wala tumatanggap na contractor doon sa nilabas na budget ng kasi usually naman government yan. Okay? Ibig sabihin, hindi acceptable sa kahit kayo ng contractor yung presyo. Then, kakaroon ng failure bid. Kapag nagkaroon ng, I think, 2 or 3, kasi RA 9184 yan, no? So, medyo mabigat na, document. I think that will be discussed by the procurement. Actually, yung tanong niya, para sa procurement yan. Bidding kasi yan, pre-construction. Medyo na-advance yata. Next-site yata siya.
Another question po, sir, from Larissa Canales. Good afternoon po. Question po, sir. Dahil po sa ngayong nangyayaring pandemya, may mga sites and work process ang nabago, especially sa pagsunod ng mga safety protocol. Do you think po need na i-enhance or may i-add po sa contracts content na pwedeng maging flexible in terms po if may another pandemic? Na wag naman po sana or same cases to protect both parties.
Usually hindi naman, I think all the contracts na prior to pandemic, wala nakalagay doon na di ba, in case na may pandemic, itong gagawin. Kasi lahat tayo nabigla eh. I think lahat tayo, I think hindi lang construction business, lahat ng business nabigla with what happened to the to the pandemic. So, ang implement ng mga protocols is the government itself, especially the IATF, no? So hindi tayo yung sumusunod lang tayo. So the contractors, the business owners, sumusunod tayo dun sa protocol na nilalabas ng government. Okay. So parang hindi naman natin nilalagay sa kontrata, in case of, okay, siguro pwede natin, in case of pandemic, ano gagawin? Hindi tayo, I think it's not us who will do that eh. It's the government eh, di ba? The IATF naggagawa ng policy kung ano gagawin ng mga contractor to para sa safety ng nila. So sumusunod tayo sa policies ng government.
Okay, sir. Thank you po. Another question po from Mariel Acuna. Due to work stoppage caused by the pandemic, the owner decided to adjust the construction schedule, but the contractor cannot deliver the project on that schedule. Likewise, even before pandemic, the contractor cannot hit the schedule. Is it acceptable if the contractor can still file for EOT?
Time extension. What?
EOT, sir.
Extension of time?
Apo. Time extension.
Time extension. Claims and disputes yan, lumalabas, di ba? So during yan, kasi nga, napakahirap na situation natin ngayon because of the pandemic. So hindi mo ngayon, wala ka pwede sisihin, di ba? Kung sino may kasalanan ba ni contractor, kasalanan ni owner. Wala tayong pwedeng, siyempre si owner, nalulugi siya kapag hindi siya, commercial building yun, hindi matapos siya ng time, malulugi siya. At the same time, si contractor, lugi rin. Kasi pag wala siya ginagawa, wala rin siya nasisingil. Diba? Para silang gusto mutual.
Ikaw mag-fill up ng form, ha?
It's a mutual agreement. It's a mutual agreement between the client and the service provider na matapos yung project on time. But since with the situation now, I think napakahirap i-resolve yan within yung time frame na yun sa kanya. So kaya lumalabas dinadala sa arbitrator yan. Pero dapat between the parties, contracting parties, medyo magkaintindihan dapat sila. especially considering the type of situation we are having now. Okay, walang parties ang may kagustuhan na nangyayari sa ngayon. Okay, they only have one objective. They both have one objective of completing the project on time. Kaya lang si contractor nahihirapan din siya dahil walang tao, di ba? Ang hirap, ang daming protocols, ang daming ano. Then, pwede ba niya, actually dapat ang question nga doon is, paano yung mga additional protective gears na kailangan gamitin ni ano? Especially yung mga testing. Di ba? May charge ba niya additional works, additional cost yan sa ano? Pwede ba niya i-charge yan sa client or something like that? Para matapos na yung project, kailangan niya ng tao. Pero kailangan din niya sumunod sa protocol ng government na kailangan matetest yung tao bago magtrabaho. Okay? So, it's not that easy, pero nare-resolve naman. Should be resolved.
Okay po, sir. Thank you po. I think that will be our last question for this forum po. Yung mga questions po na hindi na-entertain, we will ask the speakers and the answer will be emailed to the person asked na lang po.
Okay.
Thank you po. And we hope that you take notes of the important details and learn a lot in the discussion. And for those na questions, ihahabol na lang po namin sa email. And once again, thank you very much, Dr. Wanson.
Lagi ko lang nabasa ang question. Kaya lang, ang gusto ko sana sagutin, kaya sabi ko wala tayong time.
Dumadami po.
I think napaka-interesting kasi doon.
Yes po.
Yes po. And to award the token of appreciation and certificate of recognition to our first speaker, Dr. Joseph Berlin Wanzon, may we call on the Dean of the College of Engineering, Dr. Remedios G. Ado, to do the honor.
Mahina po kayo.
Good afternoon po.
Yan.
So we are pleased to award this certificate of recognition to Dr. Joseph Berlin Wanson for being a resource person in the webinar on construction and procurement management with the team Make the Deal, Traversing the World of Engineering, Procurement and Contracts, held on July 14, 2021 via Zoom and FB Live. Given this 14th day of July 2021, signed Engineer Joseph Bianes, Faculty in Charge, Engineer Kenneth Brian Tana, Chairperson of the Civil Engineering Department, Engineer Arlette de Los Angeles, Faculty in Charge, and Chairperson of the Railway Engineering Department, Engineer Ramir Cruz, and yours truly as Dean of the College of Engineering. Thank you very much, Dr. Wanson.
Thank you very much po for the opportunity. Maraming salamat po. I hope marami po natutunan yung mga bata and participants.
Again, thank you very much po, sir. And we would like to ask our participants here in the Zoom to open their cameras to have a photo opportunity with our speaker.
Okay po, paki-open na lang po ng camera natin. Ready na po? Okay, for the first gallery, 1, 2, 3, smile. Wait lang po. Okay naman po for the next gallery po, second gallery. 1, 2, 3, smile po. Wait lang po. Ayun lang naman po. Wala na nag-open na camera na iba. Thank you po.
Shy sila. Okay, thank you very much also. So, thank you for the opportunity for having me as your speaker.
Thank you very much,
Dr.
sir.
Wanson. Thank you,
Thank you so
sir.
much po.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So, before we proceed to our next speaker, we will be having a 10-minute break. But make sure to get back early because we prepared something to spice up our short break. Thank you, and we'll expect you again in a few minutes. Yun. Wait lang ha. Magre-ready lang din ako. So kanina sabi namin, i-spice up natin yung ating short break. Hinanda kasi yung aming program committee para sa ating mga Facebook and Zoom participants. So ayan, ano ba yun? Ano ba yung sinasabi nating spice up na yan?
Let's have a game. So the program committee prepared some words for you to guess. This game is called gibberish. I know na some of you are familiar with this. Para siyang words na sounds like nung pinaka-true word. Tapos hulaan mo kung ano talaga yung word. So, paalala po, this game has a prize. So, paunahan po tayong makasagot. Pabilisan ng utak at saka ng kamay. Saka pati po internet.
Saka ng internet, hindi pala ako pwede dyan. Hindi pala ako pwedeng sumama dyan.
Yes. So, ang mangyayari po sa game na ito, ang bale alternate po, the first word will be exclusive for the Zoom participants and the second will be for the FB participants. So may mga committee member na nakaka-antabay kung sino po yung magiging unang makasagot ng word. So alternate po ito for FB and Zoom participants. So
may prize po tayo.
May prize
and
po
our
ito.
Prize and our prize is sponsored by sponsored by ano daw to eh, by Ma'am Arlette.
Yes.
Parang gusto ko tuloy sumali dito eh. Kaya lang mabagal ng internet eh.
Thank you po sa aming sponsor. So, wala na po itong practice. Game agad. So, for our first word, for Zoom participants po, pag binasa ko malalaman.
Oo, wag mong babasahin. Hayaan mo sila.
Ayan, meron
okay,
na.
Okay, standby yung ating mga committee ha. Check nyo kung sino yung nauna.
May nakita na ako. Mabilis ang kanyang internet.
Oo nga, sana all.
So, for the first word, nasa yung committee.
Ano ba yung sagot dyan ha?
The answer for the first word is transportation.
Wow, transportation.
So,
hindi ko agad yan nahulaan.
So, ang unang nakasagot po is si Josh Don Michael Kim Mones from PUP. Ayan. Pa-message po si Meiji ng inyong GCash account. Meiji po, organizer_Meiji.
Congratulations po.
Congrats po.
Next word.
For the second word, for our FB participants po ito. May konting delay lang sa ating pagla-live. So for our FB participants,
FB ano? FB. Comment na yan.
comment niyo na po.
Ano ba to? Hirap ng hulaan.
Ayan. May
Ano ba yan?
nakakuha na po.
Hindi naman ako guilty dyan eh.
Parang ito po yung lagi nating ginagawa ngayong SEM. From Crash Teen Nate. So, ano ba ang tamang sagot? Next na po. Reveal the answer. Ayan. Procrastinate. Mahilig ka ba dyan, Mark?
Hindi, mamaya ko na lang yan.
Ayan. So, our winner from the FB Live
Sino ba?
is Jeremy Alonzo. So, Jeremy, message Gerald Magtahas your GCash account. So, para maipadala na po namin yung prize sa inyo.
Bilis ng internet nila, tsaka ang bilis ng utak.
Our third word for Zoom participants naman po. Corn trunk.
Wait lang, nagbabuffering ako.
Nag-buff ako ng slide.
Parang signal ko unstable.
Ayan. May nakahula na. I think. Ano po ba ang tamang sagot, Tek?
Ang daing nagko-comment, ano? Pare-parehas naman ang sagot, pero tingnan natin kung sino ang nauna.
Ano po ang sagot? Corn trunk. Ayaw i-reveal ni Tek.
Wow.
Ayan, contract
I-reveal
is the
na yung
answer.
sagot na yan. Ang kilala ko
Congratulations
to,
po kay Milarca Vilbien Villacampa from PUP. Napaka-active mo. Message Meiji for the cash prize po.
Siguro paambo na lang kami, no? Milarca.
Send ko na lang din Gcash ko, Vivien. Thank you. So for our next word, for our
Facebook
participants. Ano to? Railway.
Ay,
for our Facebook po, Railway. Pangalan ko ba to?
Rowain ka, Rowain.
Rowain ba yung akin? Sorry. Ayan.
Meron din
Ano kaya ang
try
sagot?
dito sa ating Zoom.
May sumasagot din sa Zoom.
Siyempre, tatry nila yan, ano? Ganon sila ka-active.
Tek, pa-reveal na po ng answer. Railway. Okay. Railway po ang answer for word number 4. Ang nakakuha ng tamang sagot is she.
Kailangan ba may space or one word?
Hindi naman siguro. Hindi naman tayo stricto sa ganyan. Ang mahalaga nakuha niya.
Oo nga, ano.
Si Shiralyn G. Villapando. A message po si Gerald Magtaas for your cash prize.
Congrats po.
Next word. Last word for our Zoom participants.
Oh, ang bilis.
Nag-bump na naman ang aking utak from...
Ako, nakuha ko siya agad eh. Pero hindi ako pwedeng mag-comment.
From Corment.
Ang daing nagtatry. Pare, sabay-sabay sila ng time. Pero syempre,
ang bilis ng kamay ng nauna.
Feeling ko naka-ready na.
Feeling ko siyang yata gumawa.
Enter na lang.
Ayun po. Next, pa-reveal na po ng answer. What is the answer for the word 5? Ayan, procurement.
Our next.
And ang nakakuha po is si Miss or Carl Ann Domingo from DILG. Congrats po. Pa-message po si Meiji, ang host, for the GCash information.
Yes po, congratulations.
And thank you po sa mga nag-try. Ayan. Our last word for the FB participants. Save you.
Wait lang. Wait lang.
Ano ba?
Ano yan?
Save you.
Ano yan?
Save you.
Hindi kinakaya ng utak ko yan.
Save you daw.
Stay bill. Ano kaya yan? Tingnan ko dito sa Zoom ha. May mga nagsasagot. Oh! Oo nga naman.
Ayan, may mga nagsasagot.
Last na talaga to?
Oo, last word na.
Diba? Wala bang extra dyan para sa mga organizers?
Awitan na lang natin ang ating sponsor.
Baka naman.
Ayun, so ang nakahula is si Jeremy Alonso, pero nanalo na kasi siya. So give chance to others po tayo. So ang second, ang lucky winner from the FB Live. Ano ba ang sagot?
Sino ba yan?
Civil. Ayan, ang nanalo po ay si Norisa Namoka.
Norisa. Congratulations, Norisa.
Yes, pa-message po si Gerald
Gerald.
Magtahas for the GCash account. Ayan.
Congratulations.
Congratulations po. Nag-enjoy ba kayo?
Exciting. Ako nag-enjoy ako. Hindi kinakaya ng utak ko yung ibang word eh.
Ayan, napaka-attentive ng ating mga participants today. And to the winners, may I remind na for the Zoom participant winners, pa-message po si Meiji, the host, and for the FB Live winners, pa-message po si Gerald Magtahas. Ayan. Congrats to all the winners and thank you very much to all who participated. And hopefully, you all maintain that kind of energy throughout the webinar. So, ready na ba kayo to learn more about procurement management? Ayan. Ready na ba kayo?
Ako ready na ako ah.
Pahingi naman ako ng heart reacts.
Wait
Gusto ko lang gaya si Mar kanina. Pahingi po akong heart reacts.
Ito. Oh. Ayan. Ready na ako eh.
Ayan.
Tain ng puso.
May sibo na? Ha?
Tama.
Wait. Wait lang. Ayan. So, without further ado, may I call on Engineer Arlette de Los Angeles, the faculty in charge in CE Laws, Ethics and Contracts, to introduce our next speaker.
So good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to present our speaker today. The speaker is a certified public procurement specialist, having successfully finished the certification course conducted by the PUP Institute of Continuing Professional Education in coordination with the GPPB Technical Service Office, held on July 22 to 29, 2019. He became a member of the Philippine Bar in 1999 and has been teaching various law subjects since 2001. He formally joined the government service in 2016 as a permanent faculty member of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. He was designated the Associate Dean of the PUP College of Law during the same year until February 2018, when he became the university head of the Beeson Awards Committee. An academic at heart, he still teaches and occasionally gives lecture on political and mercantile law in different bar review sites nationwide. He obtained his Master's of Law degree in 2014 at San Sebastian College, Recoletos, Manila, where he presented his paper entitled A Critical Analysis of the Philippine Copyright Law, Basis for Future Amendments, and Effective Implementation Procedure. His publishing credits includes a handy law dictionary, pocket-sized codal books on commercial laws, 1987 Philippine Constitution appended by related laws, the National Internal Revenue Code, and the Labor Code with omnibus implementing rules. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome and learn from Attorney Ernesto Salaw.
Hello, sir. Naka-mute po yata.
Yes. All right. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm being heard. To Engineer De Los Angeles who introduced me, thank you. It's a pleasure that you made that introduction. To the organizers, thank you for inviting me. Okay. So, if I may be allowed to share my screen. Thank you so much. All right. So our topic is procurement management. Okay, and before we proceed with the discussion of this topic, I just would like to share some background. Before I was assigned to procurement management, I must admit that I had no knowledge at all about Republic Act 9184 or the Government Procurement Reform Act. It was never taught sa law school, and I never knew how important this law was until I was assigned to the Procurement Management Office. The only thing that I knew about the law is when I told my friends na I will be assigned at the procurement office. Well-meaning friend said, "Ay naku, lagot ka na." And the context of that, reaction was because as lawyers, we knew that there are a lot of cases filed against government employees based on the procurement law. Okay, and that's the reason why many are quite apprehensive to take a post relative to the procurement law. Pero I think maraming kabataan nandito ngayon and I think Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, and I think she always said that for evil to triumph, it's enough that good men will do nothing. And this is the reason why we need to take on this challenge. And to proceed, let's discuss first what is procurement management. And this definition is based on a seminar conducted by the GPPB, or the office that is in charge with the implementation of Republic Act 9184. And they define procurement management as the establishment, communication, and execution of processes by which to purchase or acquire goods, products, services, or results needed from outside a project team to perform the work. So I highlighted certain terms, key terms. Okay, so we have establishment, communication, and execution, such that if you will be assigned in a procurement management office, then this will be your key role to establish processes or to communicate those processes and even to execute those processes. And these processes pertain to the procurement or purchase of products, services, and results from outside sources. Okay? So for example, your office, meron kayong sariling engineering team, and that engineering team would be the one who will probably do the repair or the construction, then that will not be procurement management. Okay, so what we are dealing here with is when we hire third-party contractors to do these things for us. Now, as to the outline, okay, so we will be introducing, of course, given the limited time, we cannot really discuss the entirety of the law, but what we will be doing is to give an overview of Republic Act 9184, then the overview of the bidding process, and then we will talk about my take on managing participation in the bidding process as a contractor, because that's what yung tinuro sa atin kanina ni Sir. Right? But before we actually have a contract to manage, we need to have a contract in the first place. And if you intend to have contracts in the government, then dadaan tayo sa Republic Act 9184. So the context of my discussion will be mainly on government procurement process. Okay, I would say that well, before my stint with the PUP, of course I used to work in a private company, and of course as a lawyer, meron din tayong experience in representing the company that I used to work for in contracts. But for this afternoon, focus tayo sa government contracts. And why not? Nabanggit kanina, di ba, yung build projects, and if you will just make a simple search sa internet as to the volume, as to the amount of build projects, then staggering yung amount. No? I saw a while ago 27 projects, and the combined amount would be at parang 8 trillion pesos. So in other words, there's a lot of opportunity for contractors or those who intend to be in this business. Now, after we talk about managing participation in the bidding process, then I will share with you my take on managing the bidding process this time as an employee of the procuring entity. Okay, so that will be the agenda for this particular talk. Now, the law. Okay, so the law is Republic Act 9184. It became effective in 2003. And the latest implementing rules and regulations is the 2016 IRR. So you're all engineering, and I'm so happy to note that meron tayong subject that talks about the law. Now, as a law professor, ine-emphasize natin that kaya may batas kasi may purpose. Okay, so there's a reason why there's a law, and mainly ang purpose ng batas ay, number one, either to avoid, okay, or maiwasan, there's an evil sought to be avoided, or number two, may isang mabuti na gustong ma-achieve. Okay? Now, insofar as 9184 is concerned, obviously, the evil sought to be avoided is Well, the possibility that contracts are given to number one, erring contractors or those who are not really, who cannot really perform the job, and worse, collusion between the government employees and these contractors. Such that if you will study this particular law, you need to put that particular purpose in context so that we know the reason why the law was designed that way. Okay. Now, this law for the scope and coverage would cover the national government agencies. So example would be different departments, Department of Labor, Finance, Interior and Local Government, and all these departments, and the bureaus under this department. So when we talk about the Department of Finance, yung mga BIR, the Bureau of Internal Revenue, they are all covered by this law. State universities and colleges like PUP, okay, we are covered by this particular law, and therefore, as a state university, we follow the provisions of Republic Act 9184. Same is true for government-owned or controlled corporations. Okay, example would be, well, what is a government-owned or controlled corporation? Simply put, those corporations, merong shares of stock sila, di ba? Well, if the government would own at least 51% of the shares of stock, then that is a government-owned or controlled corporation. Hence, they are mandated to follow the provisions of Republic Act 9184. Government financial institutions, so we have the SSS, the GSIS, and all other government corporations or institutions that are well, financial in nature. They also must follow the provision of Republic Act 9184, even if their fund, yung kanilang pondo, would really not come from the coffers of the government. Because as financial institution, of course, they have the capability to raise their fund, meron silang corporate budget, but they are still covered by Republic Act 9184, such that if there's a government financial institution who would like to well, erect a new building, then they need to follow the provisions of Republic Act 9184. And so with different local government units. Okay? So, yung mga cities and municipalities natin. Now, for the scope and coverage insofar as the activities were concerned. Now, the law applies to the procurement of goods and services, infrastructure projects, and consulting services. And for this afternoon, we will focus on infrastructure projects. Okay, and what is infrastructure project? And this is again based on the definition given by the GPTB. Of course, you may have your own definition, but insofar as Republic Act 9184 is concerned, infrastructure project is defined as construction, improvement, demolition, rehabilitation, repair, restoration, or maintenance of civil works, components of IT projects, irrigation, flood control and drainage, water supply, sanitation, sewerage, and solid waste management, national buildings, hospital buildings, and other related construction projects of the government. So for example, if there is a question posed sa ating mga examination, supposing that there is this local government who would want to demolish an existing building, dadaan ba sila sa 9184 or hindi? Well, if you will take into consideration the definition of infrastructure project in connection with the scope and coverage of Republic Act 9184, the answer would be definitely yes, because demolition is an infrastructure project. Okay, and if the building that is supposed to be demolished is a national building or a building owned by the government, then that has to pass through 9184. Okay. All right. Now, competitive bidding. Okay, the law says that all procurement shall be done through competitive bidding, except as provided in Article 16 of the Act. So this is based on Section 10. So if the question is, lahat ba talaga? Are all procurement projects should be done through competitive bidding? Well, if you will just take a look at the first part of this particular section, then the answer would be yes. But there is an important exception here, except as provided in Article 16. And this Article 16 talks about the alternative modes of procurement. Okay, so there are other modes of procurement, but the default would be competitive bidding. And there's a reason for this. Kung babalikan natin yung reason, the purpose of 9184, because and that is to avoid collusion, and that is to avoid favoritism, and that is to avoid the awarding of contract to contractors that are not really equipped. This is the reason why competitive bidding is the default mode of procurement. Okay, but then again, okay, just to put things in perspective, it's possible that an infrastructure project is awarded to a contractor through other mode of procurement. Okay, but if an agency would be really meticulous and really conscientious about 9184, dapat may proseso. Okay, there's a process before a project is undertaken through other mode of procurement aside and not through competitive bidding. Okay, but for this purpose, let us focus on the competitive bidding as the mode of procurement. Why? Because we are dealing with infrastructure projects, and under the law, if the amount is 1 million and above, then it has to be done through competitive bidding. Okay? Now, pag nakikita natin to, Garcia versus Burgos, 291 is CRA 546, or COA versus RTC and CRJR, and there's a GR number with a date, we are dealing with a decision promulgated by the Supreme Court. And I think you are all familiar with the Supreme Court, right? This is the highest court of the land, and for lawyers, and also actually for all of us, these are source of information. And this forms part of the law of the land, such that if in Garcia versus Burgos, the Supreme Court said that by its nature and characteristics, a competitive bidding aims to protect public interest by giving the public the best possible advantage through open competition. Then this particular concept, this particular declaration made by the Supreme Court is true, must be true for all of us. In other words, this particular case is a legal basis why procuring entities or government agencies, including SUCs, should, well, as a matter of procedure, procure through competitive bidding. And this is again to protect public interest. Now, in COA versus RTC, the Supreme Court again mentioned that the purpose of competitive bidding is to avoid or preclude suspicion of favoritism and anomalies in the execution of public contracts. Okay, so if you will take a look at this particular case, the point is that for a practitioner of public procurement, he or she should not only avoid favoritism, but the mere suspicion of favoritism. Okay? In other words, sabi nga ng mga lawyer dito, we should not only be clean, but we must appear clean. Okay? The mere suspicion of favoritism must be avoided. And we can do this by following strictly the rules. Okay, and that's the reason of being of Republic Act 9184. All right. Now, let's go now to the bidding procedure. Okay, so we can see here a chart showing the procedure. So it starts with pre-procurement conference all the way to award of contract. But to be technical about it, okay, to be technical about it, the start of bidding procedure is actually not pre-procurement conference. It's actually advertisement. Okay, so the implication is that the procuring entities and the men and women behind the procuring entity may, until the bidding project is advertised at nasa pre-procurement conference pa lang sila, then the matter is still internal in nature. In other words, procuring entities may still calibrate, recalibrate, reorganize, check, correct the all the details in the bidding project before siya ma-advertise. Because once the bidding project is advertised, then that is the time when the bidding project becomes public in nature. And by that time, it's not that easy to amend or correct certain portions in the bidding document. Okay? Such that during pre-procurement, dapat ma-ensure, and that the bidding project is correct, and all the details are in order, okay, such that the purpose actually of pre-procurement is to ensure that the bidding or the project is ready for bidding. Okay, and later we will be discussing the roles of the people behind public bidding or procurement, and depending on the role assigned to us, dapat we see to it that all the items are correct and in order. And if the procuring entity is satisfied with the correctness, then the project will be advertised, and advertisement means posting of the bidding opportunity sa isang government portal, and that is called the PhilJEP's website, wherein all bid opportunities from all government agencies would be advertised in that particular government portal, such that all bidders or all suppliers, all contractors who are in the same field would be notified about this particular opportunity, such that they will all have chance to participate in the bidding project. So after the advertisement, so there's a particular date wherein a pre-bid conference is set, and during this pre-bid conference, the procuring entity or the government on one side and the prospective bidders or those bidders who are interested to join would meet, and they will discuss the details of the procurement project, including the applicable rules. And then part of this pre-bid conference is the announcement as to the date of bid submission. Okay, and this is an important detail, because under the law, if a bid is submitted late, 1 minute late, okay, then the procuring entity is mandated by law not to accept that particular bid. So supposing that the bid was submitted on time, then the next procedure is to open the first envelope. At bakit first envelope? kasi may second envelope. Okay? Now, there are two envelopes, and this is the reason why you will hear this two envelope system. The first envelope containing the eligibility document and the technical proposal. So eligibility documents, these are the legal documents. If the bidder is, let's say, a corporation, then kasama dito yung SEC paper niya or Securities and Exchange Commission papers. If the bidder is a sole proprietorship, then BPI certificate. In other words, those business registration kasama dito. Mayor's permit kasama dito, and the income tax evidence that the bidder is paying its income tax kasama din dito. And then we have this so-called PhilJEPS registration. Okay, so I think this is the second time that you heard me talk about PhilJEPS. Bidders are required to be registered in this or to get this so-called PhilJEPS registration, okay, in order to participate in the procurement called by government agency. Now, assuming that all the documents required in the first envelope are complete and they pass the criterion set by the Bids and Awards Committee, then the next process is to open the second envelope. And the second envelope contains the financial proposal. Nandito na yung amount ng bid. In other words, only those bidders that would pass the first envelope criteria would be subjected to the evaluation of the second envelope. Such that, for example, if, let's say, a bidder would say, my bid is 2 million pesos. But my first envelope was rejected. Okay? And then the other bidder, they passed the first envelope criterion. And then when their financial proposal was opened, then the back would read the amount, let's say 2.5 million pesos. But our bid is lower than 2.5. Our bid actually is 2 million pesos. Now, under the law, it is of no moment. Okay? It is of no moment because a bidder must pass the first envelope so that their financial proposal will be considered. Okay? Now, supposing that the bidder passed the first envelope and the second envelope, and all the bidders that will pass the scrutiny would then be evaluated. At doon na papasok yung bid evaluation and ranking. So that all bids that pass the requirements of the first and second envelope will be ranked to determine sino ba yung bid na may pinaka-lowest bid up to the highest bid, such that the bidder that was ranked as having the lowest calculated bid would be subjected to what we call post-qualification. So this is the process wherein the procuring entity would validate, verify, and ascertain that all statements made in the first and second envelope are true and correct. So for example, if let's say, for example, the bidder would submit that they have mayor's permit issued by, let's say, the City of Manila. And in the submitted mayor's permit copy, it shows there that the mayor's permit is effective until December 31, 2021. During post-qualification, then i-verify yun. Okay? And the verification will be in such a way as the original mayor's permit will be presented. Okay? Now, another example would be submission of a completed contract. Okay? Because one of the requirements is that a bidder must have completed a contract similar to the contract to be bid, and that particular contract will be declared at kasama siya dito sa technical proposal. During post-qualification, that will be verified. Totoo ba? Is there really such contract? Because if during post-qualification, the BAC would determine that there's no such contract, then that is a ground for post-disqualification. Okay? Now, so assuming that all things are in order, okay, all statements were verified, all the documents submitted were validated, and there is no negative finding. The bidder is not blacklisted or anything, then the next process would be award of contract. And this is where yung natutunan natin kanina would now be we will now execute or implement all the things that we have learned kanina. Okay, award of contract. All right. Now, we go now to managing participation in a competitive public bidding as a contractor. Okay, and again, just for clarity, these are my own take on how to manage your participation if you are participating in a public bidding as a contractor. It's important that we know the rules. Like what yung example a while ago, it is not really that important if we have the lowest bid amount if we fail to follow the rules for the first envelope. We will be disqualified. Okay, so it's important for us to follow the rules, and probably we may ask, sir, why do we need to follow the rules? Isn't it true that what we need to do is to submit the lowest bid? Well, that is not how Republic Act 9184 works. Okay? Because again, the purpose of 9184 is to see to it that the bidding is competitive and remains to be competitive. Hence, the rules and the observance of those rules. Now, as far as the rules are concerned, I just made a list of the rules. It's given the time allowed, it's not possible for us to discuss the rules, but for your reference, so these are the applicable provisions in the implementing rules and regulation insofar as, for example, bid envelope is concerned. Nabanggit ko kanina, there is the so-called two envelope system. And in the past, prior to the 2016 implementing rules and regulations, there are a lot of bidders that are declared failed for simply failing to follow the rules on how to prepare bid envelopes. Buti na lang, in the 2016 version of the implementing rules and regulations, these are the rules were somewhat became lax, but then again, in our conduct of public bidding, there are still bidders that get disqualified because of the rule on bid envelope. Ang simple na lang that there are two envelopes, one envelope containing the technical and legal documents, another envelope containing the financial proposal, but one time a bidder submitted all the documents in one envelope. And of course, that is a violation of Section 25. Deadline of submission of bid. I mentioned this a while ago. Okay? Bids must be received by the Bids and Awards Secretariat before the set deadline, not a minute late, because the rules is clear, late bid shall not be accepted. sealing and marking of bid envelopes. Again, this is a rule that was relaxed by the latest IRR. But then again, there are bidders na hindi pa rin nakaka-follow. Recently, we had this experience wherein a bidder submitted a completely unsealed and unmarked bid envelope. Okay, and again, that is a ground for disqualification. There's also a rule on modification and withdrawal of bids, the rule on eligibility requirements, SLCC requirement, SLCC stands for single largest completed contract, and under the rule, the bidder must have this completed contract as part of its technical qualification. And the amount should not be less than 50% of the contract to be bid. So let's say, for example, your contract is worth 10 million pesos. As a general rule, the bidder must have completed a contract worth 50% of that 10 million peso contract. NFCC requirement, there's another rule for that. NFCC means net financial contracting capacity. This is an indicator that the company has sufficient financial capital to undertake the project. So there's a particular formula on the computation of the NFCC, and under the law, the NFCC of the corporation must be equal or above the budget or the contract to be bid. There's another rule for bid security, and there's another rule for bid validity. Ang daming rules, ano po? At hindi lang po yan. There are rules for examination of bids. There are rules how to conduct the bid evaluation. There are rules how to determine whether the bid is complete. There are rules for post-qualification. There are rules for the submission of the latest income and tax returns, and this must be filed through EFPS. There are rules for the issuance of the notice of award, posting of performance security, submission of contract documents, and entering into contract. And there are not so many other rules. Napakaraming rules. Okay? And I think this is the reason why the organizer of this event organized this thing, made this thing happen in order for the students today who will definitely become future leaders of tomorrow will be aware of these rules. Now, just to give an example of how these rules are stated in the law, let's take this particular rule as an example. Bidding must be transparent. Okay? And when the law said bidding must be transparent, this is not just a motherhood statement, because this is implemented by specific provisions of the law. For example, in order to be transparent, the invitation to bid must be published in the PhilJEP's website, the website that I described a while ago. Then it must also be published in the agency website. And it must also be the paper copy, the hard copy, or the document must also be posted in a conspicuous place inside the agency. Well, this is born by the experience in the past, wherein tinatago yung mga invitation to bid, such that only favored contractors came to know these opportunities to bid. Now, there's also a particular duration, okay, and this is the minimum. The invitation to bid must be posted at the 7 calendar days starting from the date of advertisement. Bidding must also be the bidding document. So aside from the invitation to bid, there's this so-called bidding document. Nandito na lahat yung detalye. Okay, including the scope of work, and all the pertinent details of the bidding, as well as the contract. this must also be published and be available for downloading. Okay? It must be published in the PDF's website again, in the agency website, and available for downloading free of charge. Okay? But bidders, if they opt to participate, if they choose to participate, then there's this certain fee that they need to pay in order to participate in the bidding. And again, there's a purpose for that. Now, another important rule is that bidding must be competitive. Okay? And the way the law made bidding competitive is made manifest by certain provisions in the law. Take for example, Section 47. If the bidder is related to the hoop or the head of the procuring entity, or any member of the Bids and Awards Committee, or any member of the Technical Working Group, or any member of the Back Secretariat, or to the end user within the third civil degree, this is an automatic disqualification. Okay? Now, ano ba itong ibig sabihin ng third civil degree? Now, alam na alam ng mga law student dito, and I hope I see some of you enrolling sa PUP College of Law. But just to explain, ano ba itong ibig sabihin ng third civil degree? Okay? Ang pagkwento niyan, let's say, yung kapatid mo, ilang civil degree meron ka sa kapatid mo? Okay? Now, a lay person would say, well, isa, kasi nga, kapatid mo yun. But the answer to that is hindi, dalawa. 2 civil degree. Because in order to compute this civil degree, you need to have, or you need to determine the common origin of you and your sibling. And of course, your common origin is your parent, right? So, your parent and you, isang sanga, right? So, you and your parent, and that is 1 civil degree, and your parent to your sibling, that is the 2nd civil degree. So in short, sino itong 3rd civil degree? Well, papasok dito si tito, si tita. Okay? Because, again, you and your parent, and of course, your tito and tita is the sibling of your parent, right? So, you to your parent, and then that's 1 civil degree. Then your parent to your lolo, then that is 2 civil degree. And your lolo to your tito, then that is 3rd civil degree. Such that if you are, let's say, a member of the Bids and Awards Committee, you're a member of the BAC, at sasali si tito, sabihan mo na siya sa ibang agency na lang. Okay? Because there will be legal repercussions if we fail to follow this strict requirement of the law. Okay? Another rule is that there should be no premature release of information until the bid invitation is posted, duly posted. Then if you are a member of the BAC, you're a member of the technical working group, you're a BAC secretariat, or even the end user, hindi ka dapat magre-release ng information prior to the due posting of the invitation to bid. Otherwise, there will also be legal repercussion. And then accreditation process is no longer allowed. And this is based on this particular legal basis, NPM 48/2013. And the reason for this is to discourage itong pre-selection of a bidder. Again, the objective is to make the bidding as competitive as possible. Now, example of rules insofar as eligible bidders were concerned. And we mentioned this a while ago. Only bids of bidders found to be legally, technically, and financially capable will be evaluated. Such that yung example natin, your bid is lower than the bid na i-awardan, but the problem is our bid was not legally or technically capable because we failed to submit the legal or technical eligibility requirement. Should we fault the Bids and Awards Committee for that? No, we should not, because that is the rule. Then bidder must have sufficient single largest completed contract. Nabanggit na rin ito kanina, and also sufficient net financial contracting capacity. Okay? Parang tagal kong magkwento, no? Parang kulang na sa oras. Anyway, effect of submitting a bid. Now, this is a particular rule that we explained during pre-bid conference, and this particular rule says that a bidder shall be deemed to have inspected the site, determined the general characteristics of the contracted works and conditions of the project, such as location, image of work, climatic conditions, transportation facilities, nature and condition of the terrain, etc. And this is based on the instruction to bidders clause 3. And what is the reason why this is important? Supposing that you saw this bidding opportunity and you said, well, this is a good bidding opportunity. Let's try to win this bid. And the problem was, kinulang tayo sa oras. And we did not inspect the site. Okay? And we made a particular bid para doon. And then the contract was awarded to us. And then when we started mobilization, doon natin nakita, there are additional costs that we need to incur in order to complete the contract. And then we discussed the matter to the government agency concerned, and we said that nagkamali po kami ng bid. We failed to consider this particular thing when we prepared the bid. Well, then there will be problems for that particular bidder. Because the law, the instruction says that if the bidder would submit a bid, it is presumed that they have inspected the site, they have inspected the terrain, they have considered all the conditions, and the bid that they have submitted have considered all of those things. Okay, so this is the reason why this forms part of the topic of knowing the rules if you are participating in a public bidding as a contractor. Now, the second is you need to know the source of the rules. Okay? Katulad nga nung nabanggit kanina, there are a lot of rules. And I think it's not humanly possible to know or to memorize all those rules. But what is important is to know the source of those rules. Okay? Now, so the source of the rules, syempre, unang-una, Republic Act 9184, the implementing rules and regulation. Now, under the law, under the practice, no? The provisions of the generic procurement manual also applies. And where do you get? Where can you get this generic procurement manual? Well, you can get this from this particular website, jppb.gov.ph. And there are a lot of important documents. There are a lot of important references from this particular website. Let's try to hindi ako nakalink pala. Basta, no? that's the website. I suggest that after this you may want to check this website and then try to figure out what are the content of this website, and then you will get a lot of important information from this site. Aside from this, kasama dito yung other rules and regulations, and including the bid document that was issued for the project. All of these things would be source of the rules that we are referring to here. Now, the third is you need to play by the rules. Okay, as I search for the quotation relative to this particular um, uh, playing by the rules. And of course, as a lawyer, I am very accustomed to this. There are many quotations that say that you need to know the rules in order to break the rules. But we are PUP students. Okay? Dapat hindi ganun ang pagtingin natin dito. Okay? And I think it is incumbent upon us as scholars ng bayan to play by the rules, to be true to what the law says. Because after all, those laws were done, uh, were promulgated in order to benefit the public. Okay, well, knowing how to circumvent rules is one thing, but definitely it's more rewarding if we win, uh, if we play by the rules. Now, supposing that you're now on the other side, supposing that you want to serve the government and for some reason you are assigned in the procurement office, and or probably as part of the procuring entity, you're part of the team that will implement a procurement project. Now, these are the suggestions on how to manage your participation, this time as part of the procuring entity. Number one, you need to know your role. Okay? In as much as you need to know the rules, you also need to know your role. And when we talk about the rules, there are different roles. You may be the head of procuring entity, you may be member of the bids and awards committee, you may be a back secretariat, you may be part of the technical working group, or you may be an observer, or you may even be the end user, supposing that you are part of the engineering team, and usually it is the office that is considered the end user for infrastructure project. In order to be a good head of procuring entity, in order to be a good member of the Bids and Awards Committee, you need to know the rules. Ano ba ang role ko as member of the BAC? Okay. Now, briefly, if you're the hoop, and usually the hoop is the head of the agency. For some agencies, like the Polytechnic University of the Philippines as an SUC, the hope is actually not a single person. It's actually the Board of Regents as the hope. And if we are the hope, we need to know, ano pa ang aking task? And for the hope, it establishes the BAC, appoints its members such that if you have this particular duty to appoint members of the Bids and Awards Committee, you need to appoint men and women of integrity, because this BAC, they are placed in a peculiar situation in order to influence a bidding process. Okay? And this is the reason why it's not only, they need not only be competent, okay, but they must be also men and women of integrity. For the BAC, okay, this is the reason why the BAC is really in the position to influence the procedure, okay, because these are the tasks of the Bids and Awards Committee. They advertise the invitation to bid, they conduct the pre-procurement conference, including the pre-bid conference, they determine the eligibility of the prospective bidders, they are tasked with the opening and receiving of the bids, conducting of the evaluation of the bids, undertaking post-qualification, recommending award of contract, and even the use of alternative methods of procurement. Now, for the BAC Secretariat, okay, they provide administrative support, They organize back-end PWG meetings. They take custody of the procurement documents. They manage the sale and distribution of bidding documents. They advertise post-bidding opportunities and bidding documents and notices of award, assist in managing the procurement process, monitor procurement activities and milestones, act as a central channel of communication, prepare minutes of meetings and resolutions of the Bids and Awards Committee. For the technical working group, so they assist the BAC in eligibility screening, in bid evaluation, in post-qualification, review of the scope of work, review of the bidding document, and then the resolution of request for reconsideration. Now, second is, well, you should not only know your role, but you need to be the best at your role. Okay, and do not be afraid to do your best, because that is our calling. Insofar as the rules are concerned, okay, we have this jury duty rule, okay, that most often a member of the BAC meron siyang ibang work, okay, because to be a member of the BAC, this is just an ad hoc role, okay. So, for example, in our institution, in the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, the members of the BAC, they are mostly vice presidents. Okay, our incumbent BAC chair is our vice president for academic affairs, who also was designated as the BAC chair. Now, jury duty says that kung meron kang sabay na trabaho, if you have this particular work as VP for academic affairs, but you have this particular task at hand as member of the Bids and Awards Committee, you need to prioritize your task as a member of the Bids and Awards Committee. So that's how demanding this procurement is. And there are more rules. Okay. Republic Act 3019 actually is the rule that's about anti-graft and corrupt practices. It also applies whenever there's violation of this law. Like, for example, you take bribe, okay, or you got undue influence by a bidder, then you may not be prosecuted under Republic Act 9184, but you may also be prosecuted under Republic Act 3019. And then there's this COA circular, very important COA circular about irregular, unnecessary, excessive, extravagant, and unconscionable expenditures. And I'm very happy that there are participants from COA, and that is their task. This is their task, to see to it that there are no irregular, no unnecessary, no excessive, extravagant, and unconscionable expenditures. And then there's this COA circular 2019-001, and this requires the procuring entities to submit the contract document within 5 working days for them to check and for them to see that the procurement is done above board. And finally, as a final message to all of you, serve the public. Okay? Serve the public well with the role that was assigned to you. Okay? Because after all, this is the reason why we exist, to serve and to do good. And with that, I thank you all very much.
Thank you so much po, Attorney Salaw, for sharing and discussing procurement management. And as Attorney Salaw said, it is important to know your role, then be the best of your role and serve the public with your role if you want to be part of the government or specifically the procuring entity. And we must remember that competitive bidding aims to protect public interest.
I agree with you, Mark. And now, we are opening the floor for the question and answer. If you have questions about the topic discussed by our speaker, you may send your questions here in the Zoom chat box and in the comment section of our FB Live. So, sir, questions po. For the first question from Eduardo D. Melanio, good afternoon. Under RA 9184, is it allowed to negotiate a new project contractor? Ulitin ko na sir Under RA 9184, is it allowed to negotiate a new project to contractor? If yes, when it is possible?
All right. So if I heard the question correctly, the question was under 9184, is the contractor allowed to negotiate
So another project, sir.
for another project? Well, the short answer is no, not allowed. But of course, there are some possibilities. For example, there is this contract that was awarded to your company. Okay? Now, relative to the contract, nagkaroon ng, let's say, additional scope of work. And ang tinatawag, I'm sure you're all familiar with this, yung variation order na tinatawag. Okay? Then that is allowed. But definitely not another contract. Okay? Because the question was, there's another contract that you want to negotiate with, and that will be a violation of the Public Act 9184 because it ceases to be competitive.
Thank you po,
Thank you,
Attorney
sir.
Salaw. For our next question po, from our anonymous na nagtatanong po, ano ang average length ng oras o araw ng bidding? Siguro po yung process kasi napapansin ko sa gobyerno inaabot ng buwan.
Yes, that's a reality. Eh? Now the shortest under Republic Act 9184, there's this shortest and longest allowable period. Okay? So there's the shortest allowable period, there is this longest allowable period. Beyond this period, then there will be some irregularities. Okay? So for example, you posted the invitation to bid, not following the requirement that it must be 7 days, then there will be violation. Okay, so I can give you the average days. Okay, so the shortest possible time would be around 36 days. The longest period would be around 100 days, 105 days. But there's this big caveat. Okay, there's this big caveat. There is a requirement under the law that the award must be given within 90 days from the posting of the invitation to bid.
Thank you, sir. Another question po from Sir Eduardo Di Meliano po ulit. What is the assurance na transparent po ang process ng bidding and awarding of projects since submission of bid document is through website like PhilJeps? Sometimes formality na lang po ang pag-post ng invitation to bid, sabi ng ibang contractor.
Oh, and that's a sad commentary. That's a sad commentary because the rules were designed to make the procurement fair. Okay? So if there are experiences like that, that really makes us sad. But then again, the reason why we have laws is because there are men who should be regulated. Because if all men are really honest, and above board, di dapat hindi ganito kahigpit yung mga batas. In other words, in my mind, the law is quite strict enough and people will just have to follow it and observe it. Well, to answer that, what is the assurance? The assurance actually are the rules embedded in the law to ensure that bidding are made transparent and above board. But of course, we have to admit that there are realities and in order to address that realities, you need to be courageous in filing the necessary complaint against those individuals.
Thank you po,
Thank
sir.
you po, sir.
Our next question po, Les, is nagtanong po ulit siya anonymously. If there is anomalous bidding that happened due to absence of check and balance, which resulted to breach of contract, ano ang consequences at sino ang liable? Who are liable?
Well, generally speaking, a case may be filed against those who are responsible. If the anomaly is with respect to the award of the contract. Because you need to, that is the reason actually why it is important to know your role. Because liabilities, hindi naman pwedeng blanket lahat ng pangalang nag-appear will be liable. So only those who are responsible for the anomaly should be held responsible, such that if the anomaly is with respect to the award, and like what we presented earlier, it is the Bids and Awards Committee that has the responsibility to recommend that award, then that responsibility would be fell upon the Bids and Awards Committee. But let's say, for example, the anomaly was due to the failure to post the necessary invitation to bid. And that is actually the task of the bid secretariat, the back secretariat. Then the back secretariat will be liable. And if the back failed to check that, then that will also be a reason for their liability.
Thank you po, sir. Another question po from Zoom. If ever the winning bidder suddenly failed to execute or finish the project, does the project would be awarded to another qualified bidder or new bidding scenario will be conducted for continuation of the project?
Well, we said earlier that the default mode is competitive bidding. The exception is when there are applicable alternative modes of procurement. One such alternative mode is what we call takeover contract. So there is a situation wherein there is this pending work or probably abandoned work, but the agency would need this particular project to be completed. So the agency is allowed to have another contractor to take over the contract. But definitely, it's not, the procuring entity is not allowed to just take any contractor that's available and then award the contract. There's still a process that must be undertaken. Again, rules.
Thank you po, sir. So next question po natin is from Anonymous po ulit. Kung bawal sumali ang mga government officials at mga kamag-anak nila sa bidding, bakit ang dami pa rin na ipanalong bidding ng mga government officials? Nagbigay po siya ng example, Villar, Duque, etc.
Of course, I cannot, what I can give you are the rules that apply as to how they were able to do that. Well, I cannot answer that anymore.
Understood, sir. And from Anonymous naman po ulit, does the bidding rules apply to all government-related projects? For example, advertisement for TV or ITV of Department of Tourism? If it does, bakit po na-award? Siguro, sir, skip na natin to. Medyo political po siya.
Well, there is this applicable mode of procurement para sa mga advertisement. So let's say, for example, there's this agency who would like to be advertised, or there's this infomercial that they need to advertise. There's a specific mode of procurement for that.
Thank you po, sir.
Thank you po. So for our next question po from Leslie Floresca of Pangasinan State University. Good afternoon po, sir. Regarding po sa pagkakamali ng bidder sa amount na na-present niya dahil hindi niya po ini-inspect ang site or other negligence, ano po ang next necessary action ang pwede niya pong gawin since di na po fit sa funds yung project na hawak niya? Thank you po.
Well, the safest is to modify or even withdraw the bid within the time allowed. Okay, so if that's the case, then the safest recourse of action is to modify. In other words, you ask the back secretariat to return to you the bid envelope so that you will be able to modify the bid amount. And kapag hindi na possible, you need to find a way to withdraw your bid amount. The problem is when the bid was opened and the award was made to you. Mahirap na po yun. Okay? Because of the rule that we discussed earlier, that the bidder is deemed to have inspected the condition of the work. And there will be repercussions, legal repercussions of that if the bidder would refuse the award of contract because of failure to consider all the components of cost.
Another question po from Anonymous po. Paano pag sa bid nakalimutan ilagay yung amount ng isang item sa bill of quantity po?
Naku. Parang madaling sagutin, but it's not that easy to answer because it will depend on the bid document that was submitted. There's this particular provision in the law that if a particular item is missing, then the bid will be deemed non-responsive, hence a ground for disqualification. But if in the bill of quantities, may nakalagay yung dash, okay, dash, then it is presumed that the bidder is offering that particular item to the government for free. So the bid will not be disqualified, but of course, the bidder cannot charge the government for that particular item.
Ayun. Thank you po, sir. I think that is all the questions we have. Thank you very much, Attorney Salaw, for answering all the questions raised by our participants and for the very insightful discussion. And to award the certificate of recognition, may I call on Engineer Joseph Raniel Bianes, Faculty in Charge of CE Laws, Ethics, and Contracts, as well as the Laboratory Head for CRE Department, to award the certificate of recognition. Sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Pa-share na lang ng certificate na i-award. Yun. So let me read first the citation. So Polytechnic University of the Philippines College of Engineering, Civil and Railway Engineering Department awards the certificate of recognition to Attorney Ernesto C. Salaw, LIM, for being a resource speaker in the webinar on Contracts and Procurement Management with the team Make the Deal, Traversing the World of Engineering, Procurement and Contracts, held on July 14, 2021 via Zoom and Facebook Live. Given this 14th day of July 2021, signed by yours truly, Engineer Joseph Raniel Abianes, Faculty in Charge, CN 30152, Engineer Arlette P. de Los Angeles, also Faculty in Charge, CN 30152, Chairperson Civil Engineering Department, Engineer Kenneth Brian M. Tana, Engineer Ramir M. Cruz, the Chairperson for the Railway Engineering Department, and our Dean of the College of Engineering, Dr. Remedios G. Ado. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
sir.
very much, Sir Salaw. Thank you for accepting our request to be the presenter.
My pleasure, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Again, thank you so much, Attorney Salaw, for lending us some of your time. We would also like to thank Dean Ado for taking part in our today's webinar. Now we will be having a photo opportunity with our guest speaker. May we request everyone in the Zoom to open their cameras and wear your beautiful smiles.
So, hello po guys. Pa-open na lang po ng camera natin. Pag-account ko po ng 3, I'll take the picture po. Okay, you ready po? 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, wait lang po. Okay, next gallery naman po tayo. Pa-open po ng camera for documentation lang po. Okay. Salamat. Okay. Count to 3 lang po ah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Next gallery naman po. Pangatlo. Guys, pa-open po ng camera or sige. Okay na yan. Okay. Okay na po. Maraming salamat po.
Again, thank you very much, Attorney Salaw and Dr. Wanson, for gracing us your time for today's webinar. And we would like to recognize the presence of our participants coming from different universities and companies all over the Philippines, as well as those international organizations who have...
daw, magbigay ka ng Xerox kay Mami. Wala palang nakalagay na ganito, kaya pala ayaw. Ano? This extension is valid.
As well as those international organizations who have given their luxurious time to attend our webinar on Contracts and Procurement Management. MMSU, MPJC, MSC, PACE, PCG, PICE Local Chapters, PICE Singapore, PLM, PSU, SMC, SSU, Technological University of the Philippines, Technological Institute of the Philippines, University of Baguio, University of Batangas, Bataan Peninsula State University.
We would also like to recognize our participants coming from Urdaneta City University, UAP, URS, USANT, VSU, DOTR, PIT, SLU, Bulacan State University, Pamantasang Lungsod ng Maynila, Central Luzon State University, Pangasinan State University, Cebu Technological University, University of the Philippines, Century Peak Holding, SKSU, J. Phillips Design, and COA.
Again, thank you everyone. And as we come to the end of our program, may I call on Engineer Ramir M. Cruz, the Chairperson of Railway Engineering Department, to deliver his closing remarks. Sir?
Hello, good afternoon. Am I being heard?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon po.
Good afternoon sa lahat po. First of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers for a successful successful launching of this webinar or training in contracts and procurement management and administration. Well, it is hindi naman siya nawawala sa uso. No? It's really timely because as persons involved in the industry, in the imperative for us to really know how to handle contracts and how to participate in procurements, procurement. Whether these are in private sector or in the government sector. I would also like to thank our distinguished speakers for this day's webinar, Dr. Wanson and of course Attorney Salaw from the PUP Procurement Management Office for giving us insightful discussion on contract management and procurement management respectively. As a former member of the PUP Bids and Awards Committee Technical Working Group for Infrastructure, I really appreciated this the discussion on particularly on procurement management. Medyo mahirap po talaga siya, it's difficult. But again, we really need to understand the provisions of the law para hindi po tayo maligaw later on, when it is our turn to engage in procurement activities, whether it is in the government sector or in the private sector. As we all know, as the famous saying goes, construction is really it has 4 Ds. It is difficult, it is dangerous, it is demeaning, and it is dirty. Dirty, literally and figuratively speaking. And the role really of the RA 9184 or yung ating mga batas on procurement is to prevent to prevent the industry from becoming dirty, literally and figuratively speaking. So again, with that, I would like to in behalf of the Railway Engineering Department and the College of Engineering and the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, I would like to thank all of you who extended their time in joining us in this webinar, and we hope that you have learned something from this webinar, and it is part of our continued commitment to bring quality education, may pandemya man po o wala. So maraming salamat po. Mabuhay ang Sintang Paaralan. Mabuhay po tayong lahat. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much with that, Engineer Ramir. We are sure that our participants have learned a lot from our speakers who have given their best to discuss contract and procurement management. And every contracts.
We hope that you all learned a lot today. Don't forget to fill up the evaluation form for this webinar. The link of the evaluation form is now sent in our chat box here in Zoom and in the comment section of our FB Live. And on behalf of the organizing committee of this webinar, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to all the participants for accepting the invitation to make a deal and make this event successful. This has been your moderator for today's webinar, Rowan Marie B. Paet, the overall chairman of this Contracts and Procurement Management webinar. Now closing the deal and signing off.
This event will not be successful without your participation. Thank you for being with us today, and we hope that the lessons that you have gained will make a significant impact in your career as engineers and future engineers. Understanding procurement and contract management will make us prepared and ready in the professional world of engineering. This has been Mark, signing off.
Again, thank you so much, everyone. And for those who are still here inside the Zoom, may we request for a final photo op po. Thank you. Pa-open na lang po ng cam.
Thank you po for attending.
Wait lang po. Okay. Okay guys, for the final documentation natin. First gallery lang po muna. Okay guys. 1, 2, 3, smile. Next gallery po. 1, 2, 3, smile. Next gallery po. Pangatlo. Pang-apat. Wait lang po. Ayun na po, okay na po. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you po. Have a nice day.
Thank you po.
Ingat po kayong lahat. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much.